first person to recreate the Forest Gump run 5 times across the USA, 1,607 plus miles, 422 days. What the fuck? I don't even know where to start.
Running.
I don't even know where to start. Genuinely.
You could start in Mobile, Alabama. That's where I kicked off, you know. And so so we recreated the scene, you know, sort of where Forrest is running over that.
This one here.
Yeah, exactly. And so that is the Harbour River in Beaufort, South Carolina. So it's the same bridge that Forrest ran across the Mississippi, but it's not the Mississippi because, you know, so I crossed the Mississippi for the 4th time in St. Louis. So this is, South Carolina, and just over the other side of that bridge is the chocolate shop where they got the actual box of chocolates that he sits on his knee and stuff. So much of it is set in South Carolina. Like, I came back literally $3,000 overdrawn, 0 savings whatsoever. But I was fairly confident I'd get a job. And you know what? You just end up starting saving again. And you realise that $30,000, it might have ended up getting us a bigger house. But it wouldn't really change things. And now I've got that adventure there, you know, and stuff, you know. And it's about... We tie ourselves down so much to the money side of things. You know what, you'll get more to live, and even if you do end up living sort of, you know, in your council house sort of that you've been in for whatever, you know, I bet you'll be happier than people who are just living in a massive mansion but have done nothing apart from pay for that massive mansion. The kids will love it, like, cheers, Dad.
Yeah. Just before this episode starts, if you enjoy the Leggett podcast, we produce 4 exclusive bonus episodes per month for our private members club on patreon.com. For the price of £1 a week, that's just £4 a month, the price of a beer or a fancy coffee. We produce these bonus episodes that have special guests on, various topics, and there's also merchandise offers and various bonuses you can have, competitions, all kinds. Get over there, support us, support the podcast by giving just £1 a week. Link is below.
This episode of the podcast is kindly sponsored by Feel Supreme. Feel Supreme have been sponsoring the podcast for a number of weeks now. They're an incredible company. They've got the most diverse range of supplements. I've got some here, the CBD, which I've been taking, which is brilliant. The mushroom extract as well, which I've been taking once a day. They've got vitamin D3, vitamin C, a huge range of different health supplements, and you can get 10% off if you go to the code below, go to the link below, which is feelsupreme.co.uk/Leggett, and you get 10% off by clicking through and going through their website through that link below. Please support them. They've been a huge support of the podcast. They've got the most incredible products that I take daily, myself and Andy take daily as well. So anything you can do to support them ultimately supports us. Everything CBD, vitamin D3, vitamin C, which is obviously vitamin D3 massive at the moment, and vitamin C obviously really important for immune support. So go to the link below, click through, and you'll get 10% off your order. Right, it's a Leggett podcast with myself, Tom Wickstead.
It's me, Andy Grant, and this week we have Rob Pope. Nice
Hello.
one, mate.
Hello. Mate, thank you so much for coming on. Really excited when I was driving here to Liverpool for this. So yeah, thank you so much.
Just talking to you now, I already think this is a podcast which I think it's going to be about one thing, and it could end up just going in mad directions.
My middle name's Tangent.
Already, mate, I've learned that you're a vet and you've got a degree in pathology and... What's he doing?
Well, a vet and a PhD as well.
A PhD.
What have you got the PhD in?
It's in pathogenesis of Pestipeti ruminant virus. So this current climate, like, sort of, I know enough to be dangerous, but not actually enough to talk sense.
That's mad, that, isn't it?
And
it's like measles for sheep and goats, but it kills them.
Is that what? So it's what is that? So it's the study of viruses within animals, is it?
Yeah, that specific virus, and so you probably heard of distemper in dogs, and so PPR is like sheep and goats, but it's not in this country. You don't have to worry about it. Yeah,
that's mad.
And you're also in a band.
I was, yeah. Like, so it was only a Mickey Mouse cover band, but we found a niche in uni, and all the cover bands that we saw were pretty lousy, and we thought we can be just as lousy as them. and I decided to play bass because it was the easiest thing, but we got away with it. We got away with murder.
and the reason, so there's, I'm hoping this is going to go on to different tangents, but the other reason is, I best just reading this from your Insta bio, because I just think this is fucking incredible every time.
It is pretty
when
nice.
I just read your Insta bio, first person to recreate the Forest Gump run 5 times across the USA, 1,607 plus miles, 422 days. What the fuck? I don't even know where to start.
Running.
I don't even know where to start. Genuinely.
You could start in Mobile, Alabama. 'Cause that's where I kicked off, and so...
In fact, could we start at the point of you deciding that you wanted to... Like, what was the whole reasoning behind it?
No one gets up and just fucking runs across America, do they? What's happened in your life to think, I'm going for it? You know what I mean?
I remember, like, I've always done, like, running stuff. Like, I started off in Swindon, so same junior school as Franny Jeffers and Wayne Rooney as well.
Yeah.
And
I spoke in that school not long ago.
Did it really?
Yeah, I done a presentation there.
Yeah, it's great. It's just around the corner from that.
Rooney's mum still works there, is the dinner lady.
I never knew she worked there, like, sort of.
Is it the same school as it? Well, they might have went to a different school then.
Oh, no, but
I always thought that is...
like, so you don't tend to know the dinner ladies' names, which is a shocking thing. Why do we not know dinner ladies' names?
Yeah, we don't really, do we?
Yeah. Kids of the world, I'm sure everybody's listening here. Find out your dinner lady's name.
Should do, yeah.
Yeah, they just say miss, don't they? I remember at my school.
Exactly.
It wasn't like...
Yeah, actually,
it wasn't just like, yeah... Because you don't use first names, do you, in school? Like,
No,
first
exactly.
names in school is like the dirt, isn't it? Like, don't you dare call me by my first
the
name.
headmaster there called me Bob. And sort of, my mum said his name's not Bob, it's Robert. He went, Mrs. Pope, it's a term of affection, so I was all right, there you go. And he formed the cross-country team, so that was the start of it all. And then, so carried on running in school, went to uni, decided playing footy was more fun, but I'd do the London Marathon every year, and so, but I'd just train like your average fella who goes, oh crap, the marathon's in 2 weeks' time, I'd best do some runs. And I ended up sort of going to Australia with work, and I was there for 3 years, and I thought, well, I should join a footy team out there. Now, when I moved out, I was about 35, and I thought, if I do an ankle now, my ankles are knackered from footy, and, it would have took me 10 weeks to, start running again. So I thought, oh, what else is there? And I thought, well, what that Aussie rules looks like a laugh. And then I thought, no. I said, I'm a mouthy Englishman, and I'm just going to get snapped into. And, you tend to have to be 6 foot tall to be there, anyway. And so I thought I'll join athletics club, and it was just boss. And I started, running loads and loads, and, of course, it was nice weather every day. And I got pretty good, and so I got picked for the state to run for Victoria, because I'd been there for 3 years, and he said, do you want to run for Victoria? And I said, yeah, all right, go ahead. So it was Sydney Marathon, and it was a real surreal moment. So I went off, and I was running with the mad elites, like the Kenyans and the Japanese, and this one fella who's about 6'4" wearing marijuana leaf socks, and I saw the Eurosport afterwards, and it said we got a hometown hero here. I wonder how long he can hang on. And not very long, because by the time we got to Sydney Harbour Bridge, he'd well gone, and I'd just been gapped a little bit by the main elites, and so I was in about 9th, and they went over the top of the Sydney Harbour Bridge, and I was miles ahead of everyone behind me, and so I couldn't hear anything apart from my own footsteps, couldn't see anything in front of me. And it's probably the only moment anyone's going to have like that on Sydney Harbour Bridge until 28
cool,
days later.
It? Yeah.
It was great. That was me done. And I ended up finishing 10th in this one. So much so, maybe my proudest achievement might be to see one of those Eurosport graphics, but with my name on it, And
That's
with
cool,
Rob Pope, Australia as well. And
what time did you get for this?
That was 2:28, I think. And so I
think you're doing yourself a disservice. You kind of went, that's a fast time. I mean, how fast did you do the London Marathon?
That was 2:36. Sort of.
So you're not just a fair weather runner.
That is insane.
He goes, just
it?
2 weeks. One of those. That's not.
Yeah, well, the mad thing about it though, because obviously 2:28. I know it's fast. I'm not going to be false modesty about that. I know it's reasonably fast, but it's not Mo Farah, And but when I went over the line, Tim Crosby, the athletics coach, just goes, "Congratulations, Rob, you're Australian champion." And I was just like, oh, nice one, Tim. And he went, no, mate, you're actually our Australian champion. And I said, so I'm not Australian, right? And he goes, doesn't matter, mate, you've been here long enough. And so literally, seriously, 2015, men's Australian marathon champion, got the gold medal and everything like that. And I'm walking down the street afterwards, phone goes, don't know the number, answer it, you know. He's like, g'day, Rob, it's Chris Muirden from Athletics Australia. And I was like, all right, mate. And he just goes, congratulations today. And I was like, thanks very much. And he goes, well, you know, today was I'll stop the accent now. He goes, you know, today was an IAAF gold race. And I said, yeah. And he says, you know what that means, don't you? And I said, well, I know it was on telly. And he said, well, it means because you come in the top 10, you've automatically qualified for the Rio Olympics. And I was just like, yeah.
Oh my God.
I was like, behave, you know. And I said, so there's going to be some people who are in Chicago and Berlin who have run faster times than you, and they're going to be going for qualification, and they're like properly Australian. So if they get that, we'll pick them ahead of you. But if they don't get the times, you know, you're currently sitting second on the pick list, you know, out of 3. So would you consider switching nationality? And like, I was singing Waltz and Matilda straight away, you know, I had to stuff that Union Jack in a bin and away. But unfortunately, I didn't find out where the lads lived, so I could leave roller skates outside the house and they qualify. But then it was, you know, I should get like one of those Olympic tattoos, but like with only 3 of the 5 rings drawn.
Yeah.
No, that's some achievement to even be spoken about.
Well, I was buzzing, like, just to say, you know, I can legit say I qualified for the Olympics, and as long as people don't actually dig into it too much, you know, they'll be really impressed.
That isn't. When was the Rio? 2016 was it?
2012, yeah.
Wait, 2012 was London.
No, it was 2016, wasn't it? Of course,
Yeah,
2012 was London,
was,
you know. And so it didn't. Basically, I moved back to the UK because the job I was in at the time like wouldn't have allowed me to train proper hardcore for it. So I came back.
What were you doing?
I was working in the university as a vet over there, and so, but it was like nights and stuff, and it was, you know, when you were working, it was full on. You had a decent bit of time off, enough to train, good enough to almost get there. And so when I came back, I said, you know, to this job, I said, listen, I'm going to need to be training loads, you know, 3 hours a day. Will you support me? And they said, yeah. And then as you often get with jobs, didn't happen. I was working like 12, 13-hour days, dead frustrated. And so I said to the missus, like, you know, this is the time to do it, because we talked about running across America loads. I'd read a book like 10 years previously by a fella called Nick Baldock, and sent him it was only when I went through my emails to him, and it was the first one was entitled Forest Gump 2, so that was like the mention of it. But I only ever planned to go across once, LA to New York, or, you know, San Francisco to New York. That's what everybody tends to do.
Yeah.
But I looked at the Forest Gump route because you do, don't you? And I'd also thought about running across Australia, and I'd bought this stroller, like a 3-wheeled running pram, out there to run across Australia, which never happened because they, you know, nearly ended up going to Rio. And
But wait, even because you. Also, I've got so many fucking questions.
There's lots of threads all coming together.
Yeah. You're just making it sound so normal, and I'm like, no one just goes to the missus and going to run across. When you kind of had this this idea, so you've come back, you got this job, and then I don't know, you and your missus have just said, right, if we're going to do it, we're going to kind of do it now or something type thing.
Exactly. And
is she, I'm guessing, just as crazy as you to think, let's go and
no,
run?
but she's tolerant, which is the thing, you know. If both of you are as crazy as each other, then it doesn't work, you know, because then something bad's going to go, you know. But she knew she would near the end of it, and so it started on and off. I knew what the rough Forest Gump route was. You know, I'd seen the film. Someone had worked out a rough route on the net, and they said it was like 15,248 miles. And so every now and again, I'd look this route up again, and so I'd just type in Forest Gump run, and then it was like, man completes Forest Gump run. I'm like, you're kidding me, no way. And so it's this fella he did the second leg, Santa Monica to the lighthouse in Maine. And I'd said to the missus, listen, someone's going to do this sooner rather than later. And like, it's a hell of a big ask to be the second person to do that, you know. Like, sort of, I spoke to Mark Beaumont, the fellow who rode around the world in 80 days on his bike, and I said, are you bothered if anyone beats your record? And he says, man, nobody remembers who was second up Everest, you know, just because it was a unique thing. It's not necessarily about the time, it was the uniqueness.
Exactly.
Of course,
mate, yeah.
And
I've sorry to interrupt you there, mate. I just typed it into Google here now.
So that's a slightly different one to the one I took, but like sort of The other one's a bit more stylistic. I can pick holes in this route left, right and centre. They've done well with the landmarks, right? We'll start with the first one.
So it starts in Alabama and just works its way off sort of the south, like Arkansas, Oklahoma.
They've just put a pin in the middle of Alabama there, because Forrest is meant to be from Greenbow, Alabama. Greenbow doesn't exist. He made it up for the film. It's actually mostly filmed in a town called Varnville in South Carolina, which I did run through as well. And so in the book, which doesn't have the running scene in, that was purely made up for the film. But,
really,
why not? They probably just had this boss film, and I know what will make this even better. And so in the book, he's from Mobile. And so I started there, and it's right down at the south. And also, it's literally 26 miles away from Bayou La Batterie, which is where Bubba was from. And so I figured, the first marathon has got to be from where Forrest was meant to be from to Bayou La Batterie. And so that's actually where I hit the ocean for the first time. And I've got a photo of me in the khaki slacks, the check shirt, the cap. And just as me Mrs. Nadine was taking the photo, a shrimp boat just sails past, and I was just like, this is like the Truman Show, So it's just so weird, and the amount of Truman-esque moments, on going through New Mexico. So basically, you hug the South, to start with. And went through New Mexico, and on shuffle for the first time, Born to Run comes on by Bruce Springsteen. The next road sign I run through told me I was on Highway 9, and I was just like, bollocks. There's no way that this is real. And
can I just stop before you? So again, to me, Matt, right? So how long did this take to plan?
In earnest, I would say 6 months. But there've been bits and bobs. I'm an arch procrastinator. I just like to not do what I'm meant to be doing. And so I knew the rough thing to do, but it was only serious planning, in March of the year. I thought, right, let's start doing this. But, I only booked the flights about a month before we went, and we started on September the 15th, because that's the day Forrest started, and it's the day that I knew that because Jimmy Carter, when he runs past the hairdressers, it's on the radio that Jimmy Carter collapsed in a 10k race that day. So you have a little Google, when did Jimmy Carter collapse? September the 15th.
That is mental, that.
Well, you got to make it real. So I went into that barber shop in Mobile, and I had a beard, probably a hair and beard weren't too dissimilar. Maybe hair was a bit longer than what it is now. And I go in there and I say, right, I want to show him a photo, and the fella's like, you want a high and tight? And I was just like, mate, if that's what it's called. I said, that number there? He went, 27, yeah, it's a high and tight. And so it was a bit like the barbershop scene, in Coming to America, sort of everybody was chatting in there, but then everybody started just watching what was going on as this hair was falling to the floor, and so yeah, clean shave, cutthroat shave, marine cut, so zero on the sides, flat top. And then I started later that night.
I need to watch Forest Gump. I haven't watched it in a long time.
Yeah, I haven't watched it for a while. So is it just you and your missus that goes over?
Well, yeah, we originally sort of sent out a thing on Facebook saying who wants to be in the crew, but everyone was just like, what, you think about going for 3 years and stuff? And we were like, yeah, it's a non-paid job. So we just went over there, and we worked out the cheapest way to do it was probably to buy a cheap camper van, because you hire an RV, that's money down the drain. You're paying hire car and motels, money down the drain, you never see it. And we thought, let's just do this and pray that we get to sell it at the end, for something approaching what we paid for it. And landed in Houston, got the megabus to New Orleans, hired a car. Yeah,
that's a journey, isn't it?
Well, it was, yeah. So Houston is...
Sorry, it's not too bad. It's not too bad, is it? Yeah.
And so New Orleans is where the final A on Louisiana is so it was $17 to get there. It was fantastic. And then we were in a hire car and motel until we got to New Orleans, and then we got the megabus back to Houston to pick up this 30-foot thing, massive camper van. And we hoped that there was going to be a crew. We were hoping for everything, sponsorship, a physio to say, I'll get involved and come out with this, And so the fella in Houston, the RV dealer, right, his name was Randy Lane. Yeah. And he had a big, massive muzzy, and it was just and he was just like, so Hugh's going to take the test drive? And I just literally, you're really looking to the floor. I wouldn't have been the first over the top in World War I, I tell you, and my missus just goes I guess it would be me then. And straight out onto the I-10, the busiest road in America, like, and I'm just like, sorry about this, but you are going to be the one driving it, you know. And as I said, she's tolerant, you know. And then we just started properly down the road, you know. And well, actually, by the time we got to Houston, I was running past this house, and there was a bin outside, and there was a massive stuffed panda. And of course, I was running for the World Wildlife Fund, and this panda, I thought, why is it thrown out? Is it covered in shit or anything like that? But it was fine. It just had a scuffed nose. So the missus runs past me after I'd been running for 8 miles with this panda under my arm, and she was just like, "Is that coming with us?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Are you going to give him a name?" And obviously, I put it out to social, and people said I had to call him Bubba. So there, I had my best good friend already.
Yeah, mate, that's quality. You know, when because a lot of people will be listening to this, myself included. You know, obviously you're a vet, full time. You know, I myself got a full time job and stuff like that, and to actually go away, and I don't know, we'll find out how long you were away for, but to actually leave jobs, or I don't know if you had a house at the time, like it's a big move to do, isn't it?
Yeah, like sort of, I didn't mind jacking a job in, because, you know, at the end of the day, I felt I didn't owe it any favours anyway. And so the house that I sort of was living in Crocky was pretty much paid up, so that wasn't a thing. You know, it was ex-council, you know, sort of right to buy. You know, the family had been in it for like 40 odd years, so it was all paid off, you know. Yeah. But we'd saved up money to, like, so we just thinking, right, okay, well, we're going to end up getting a bigger house, hopefully, you know, so we'd saved this money up. And, you know, it was about 30 grand we had. And I thought, right, we'll probably end up spending 10 grand of that. That'll be fine. We'll get across to Santa Monica. We'll just, you know, we'll put 10 grand up. It's all for charity. We don't mind, you know. Sort of worst case scenario, we could just give 10 grand to charity and not have an adventure. So I'm not going to moan about spending my own money for that.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And then, of course, we got to Santa Monica, and then the sponsors didn't happen. And then we got across the other side. We were like, well, the sponsors will definitely happen now. They'll be massive. We're about gold-plated RV, you know. And then they didn't happen. And, like, pretty much, like, sort of, even midway through, on the way back, like, Nadine had to go home in Tennessee, because we knew there's no way we could afford the RV. So, you know, by the time we got to Tennessee, it was pretty much hand-to-mouth stuff, you know. And, by the time we got to San Francisco, still no sponsors. And that was the time we had to, like, just say, guys, is anybody happy to chip in a little bit here, you know? But fortunately, we'd gone past what we'd spent. So we spent a lot, like overdraft a lot. And but we'd raised more than that for the charities at that point. And I was just like, okay, if we're going to carry on and for this to be a thing, I don't just want to finish the run in San Francisco. I'll just wing it and see if we can get across to the other side and see if we can get back again, because if we get to the end, it's the Gump run. Otherwise, it's just a really long run, you know.
Yeah, because I think that's a limiting factor. A lot of people have these, you know, things of, like, it's nowhere near comparable, but my dad, when on his 60th, wants to drive across America, and, you know, those sort of, like, once in a lifetime things to do. The limiting factor, the majority of the time, is probably job, family, house, mortgages, the usual things that tie people down and, you know, bring lack of freedom. It takes balls, mate, to do.
Yeah, if I was your dad's mate in the pub, I would literally just say, just remortgage the house, give the kids less and stuff, because seriously, chances are most of us can stand on our own 2 feet, you know, and long may that continue. Like, I came back literally 3 grand overdrawn, 0 savings whatsoever, but I was fairly confident I'd get a job. And you know what? You just end up starting saving again, and you realise that 30 grand, it might have ended up getting us a bigger house, but it wouldn't really change things. And now I've got that adventure there, you know, and stuff, you know, and it's about, we tie ourselves down so much to the money side of things. You know what, you'll get more to live. And even if you do end up living sort of, you know, in your council house sort of that you've been in for whatever, you know, I bet you'll be happier than people who are just living in a massive mansion but have done nothing apart from pay for that massive mansion. The kids will love it, like. Cheers, Dad.
Yeah.
So refreshing to hear that, though, mate, from someone who's been there, seen it, done it, you know what I mean?
But, that, you know, I wouldn't have been necessarily that person if I had, you know, because it's all well and good me coming up with that now. That's because I had that massive dream that I desperately wanted to do. And if it wasn't that case, and the motivation for the charities as well, I just saw, well, I'll go all in. And I didn't want to spend all that money. And once we started spending my own cash beyond what we budgeted beyond Santa Monica, it was awful, and I stopped checking my bank account because it was depressing me. And I just literally just kept putting my card in. And if money came back out, I'd be like, yes. And
Jesus.
But it does show, though, that if you don't have that dream right now, don't be afraid of having a dream because don't think you're ever going to afford it. Have the dream, and eventually the money, you might not be able to do it straight away. It might take you 5-10 years to save, and to be honest, I don't know, it probably did take me like sort of 5-10 years to save that money. But sod it, blow it.
Well, that's it. You get to live once, and to say you've done something like this, fucking, that's worth its weight in gold, isn't it?
Yeah, but the important thing is to see that I've come out on the other side and I've not gone mental, and I'm still like sort of able to go to the pub and have a pint, and be able to buy my own round,
Yeah.
And it will happen.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and like you just said, mate, you can always find a job, can't you? There's always
you can always
ways.
make more money, can't you?
You can always come. So, did you have to get a visa then? So, when you were starting out, did you have to think about? Obviously, the US have to approve a visa to you.
Yeah,
and you write on your form what you're doing. And you get
not to start with, because I wasn't big-headed enough to think. The only person who always thought I would do it was Nadine, and stuff. And I was confident because people had run across once before. So if they could run across, I knew I was an all right runner. So unless something went wrong, I could get across as well. So I got the 90-day tourist visa. And we just thought, well, you're not going to be able to do any more than one crossing, so let's enjoy it, because if this is the only thing that ever happens, at least we'll enjoy it. There's no point bombing across at sort of, 60 mile a day and not talking to anyone on the route, not sort of, staying at Crazy Owls, this bar just in a bayou outside New Orleans, and getting bladdered before the next day, because, so what's the point in that, So we took 75 days, which is still ahead of schedule, to get to Los Angeles. And then we thought, right, we're going to fly back home. We booked our flights back. We fly back home, and then it just went down to the the consulate down in London and said, "This is what I'm going to do." And you have to come clean. Why do you want to be in the country for 6 months? And so I tried for a year, but they said you've got to go for 6 months at a time. You can apply to extend it while you're there, but if their application gets rejected, your 6 month visa gets cancelled, because it's a repetitive 6 months, you see. So I can go in for 6 months at a time for the next 10 years.
You could just fly to Canada, Toronto or whatever, and then come back in.
You can't go to Canada, Cuba, Caribbean, Hawaii, anything like that. It's got to be a substantial journey home, and it's meant to be a significant amount of time. And it's if you look on the forums, it says the same amount of time out of the country than in. So if you're like 6 months in, you should be 6 months out, because otherwise you sort of live in there.
Yeah.
But I would go home for I'd be there for 5.5 months, so it wasn't on the button, putting the flag up, and then I'd go home for maybe 3 weeks. So second leg of sort of flight, I went from Los Angeles to Maine to the famous lighthouse that Forrest turns around at. Where there was a welcoming committee, and they said, "Oh, that's amazing. How long are you in town for? When are you flying home?" And I'm like, I'm not flying anywhere. I'm running to Chicago, I know. So I flew to Chicago, went back, renewed my visa, did Glastonbury, went to see Phil Collins at Hyde Park, and there must have been something coming in the air tonight. Don't worry, I'm going somewhere with this. There must have been something coming in the air tonight, because 9 months later we had a baby. So we groovy kind of love and all that. So we go from Chicago, fly back, go across the top through sort of Minnesota, Montana, down to San Francisco, then back across all the way to South Carolina before I had to go home again. Made it literally the day before I was due to fly back. Got to the ocean, that was the fourth ocean, and went back home for another 2 weeks, and then came back out and did the vast bulk of the final stint.
Jesus, I feel like we're brushing over. So
yeah, I feel like we are too.
So you started in Alabama there, yeah, and then you ran all the way across to.
So to Santa Monica, so that famous pier.
In LA, yeah.
That was 2,240 miles, I think, something like that.
What was the Deep South like?
Amazing. It's just boss. I think it's the north here. Of course, Deep South conjures up loads of sort of issues and stuff, and especially recently when there's been the issue sort of over race and everything like that. Now I was sort of not really exposed to that due to my status as a middle-aged white fella, you know, and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
You could see little evidence of it, little bits of evidence here and there, you know, like sort of the Confed flags and stuff. But still, the individual kindness from people was incredible, and I do genuinely love the place. And of course, as we know with everything, it's fortunately it's a shrinking number of idiots who are still involved in that.
Yeah.
But the people there
like,
are
when
so
you
generous and so warm to you, you know.
Because I imagine when, like, I mean, I've seen, just everything about the Deep South appeals to me in terms of, like, the food and it's very rustic, and the way of living is very, like, rural type of living, and, you know, like, little tiny villages. I don't know if they call them villages, but, you know, in, like, little tiny...
There'll be towns, even if there's, like, 4 houses, it's a town.
Is it really? Yeah.
Or
you know,
census-designated place,
you know, like, little tiny cool quirky bars that the same... You see so many films where in the deep, you know, it's the same 4 blokes round this little dead cut, you know, with dollar bills all over the rooftop, you know, all over the bar, and just, like, it really appeals to me, the Deep South.
Well, I literally went in this place. This was on the final leg where I met up, like, sort of, with a fella who's originally from New England. I met him in Glacier National Park in Montana. He now lives in Marietta, Georgia, and I saw him again in just by Muscle Shoals in Alabama, where, of course, the recording studio is. And we were in this bar called Stagger Lee's, and it was a proper dive bar. All your dollar bills like pinned to the ceiling and the walls, and it was ladies' night in there. The only lady was the lady behind the bar. It was just like 4 fellas, couple playing pool and sort of us in there, you know. And it's just great, like sort of like my experience in Tennessee, which is where like Jackson, Tennessee, which had the coolest greyhound station in the world. Nadine had gone home, and that's where I actually had to start going on my own with the stroller I bought to go across, Australia. And pretty much out of money already, and I didn't buy a single beer the whole time I was in Tennessee, and it wasn't because I was asking for it. I just go into a place and someone just goes like, so, hey man, do you want a beer? And I'd be like, yeah, that's okay. And the generosity of people there was that's what gave me the confidence I could maybe do the whole thing, because I knew the people had my back, you know, and that was just the way it was. But
it sounds like you've just kind of, I'm sure you didn't, but like you've just kind of winged it. Like, I don't know. Like...
No, I did. Yeah, like to be honest, like the only thing that was planned was the get in the RV, and then from there you'd only plan the route. I knew where I had to end up, and there was a few things I wanted to hit. Like I wanted to run through Joshua Tree National Park, and I did, and I listened to the Joshua Tree on loop the whole time through. Yeah, about 8 2/3 times it took me to get through. Where else did I want to hit on the way through? Well, Tombstone, Arizona. So we were actually in Tombstone, you know, the Wild West OK Corral place, on November the 8th, which of course was the night that Trump got elected. You know, and
in 2016.
Yes, in 2016 and stuff like that. You know he's lost this one, don't you?
Yeah.
And
sorry, I was just trying to figure out dates of when you.
The November the 8th, 2016. It's like one of these dates that I just won't ever forget now. And we were in a saloon bar. We'd actually done a pub crawl, like, so there's 5 bars in town. We'd gone round and we went back to the first one to watch the thingy, mostly because the barman was called Forrest, and so I ended up having 6 pints, and I was leathered on those 6 pints, like sort of, and it looks like obviously on the telly that, you know, the Trump's won, and the bar manager comes in wearing a Stetson. He goes, well, it sure looks like we ain't going to have no Clinton in the White House, so I say shots for everyone. And I'm sure this didn't happen, but I imagine guns being fired into the roof. And yeah, he literally bought everybody in the bar shots. And I was up for this because, of course, I'd had a few bevies.
Yeah.
And Nadine, the voice of reason, like, you know, one of these investigative reporters, made his excuses and left, you know. And he was like, do you not want a drink? And I was just like, oh, yeah, man, but I've got to run in the morning. And I did, like, it was like 40-odd miles the next day, you know, in whatever temperature it was. But, like, the start was like 35 and 100% humidity, and like you'd wring your kit out 5 times a day. I had like sort of 3 pairs of trainers, I think, and by the end of them they would all be like sodden, soaking wet as if I'd been in the sea.
Jesus.
How many was each leg different? How many miles you running?
I got into it, like the first leg, like I was building up, and I got injured in Houston, and like so I thought that was the end of it. So 500 miles in, and I ended up having to go to a physio when I was there, and I thought this is the end of it. And right, so I'm in Houston. Right, guess what was the physio's name? A lady. What was her name in Houston?
Oh, don't say his girlfriend's name, innit?
No,
Forest, all right.
No, better than that. Houston's the clue.
Oh, Jesus.
No idea.
Someone with a surname Houston. Whitney.
Yeah, of course. Whitney. Yeah, of course.
And like she said her name was Whitney. I was like, you're having me on. Again, another Truman Show moment. And she patched us up. And like, so I got injured again in Arizona. But like, I just did the same thing that she told me to. It was all with the K-tape and everything like that. And it was grand. So the first one was like a voyage of discovery. The second one was, tension, because we knew that the money was circling the drain. I knew Nadine was going to go, and I knew I was going to be on my own, like sort of for that bit. And still, it was still early part of the year, like March, and so going over the Appalachians, you could still get nailed with snow. And then when I hit Maine, so that's the far east coast there, up at sea, and I got to the lighthouse, and I could have quit then, because I felt that I'd almost done everything that I could have ever have set out to do, apart from like the overall thing. But again, it wasn't the dream end, and Nadine wasn't there because she had to go home, and so I had a month left, and so I thought, well, I may as well just run to Chicago while I'm here, and so followed.
Which is not short.
Yeah,
it's pretty much
about 1,100 miles, I think, from there, and so because at this point I'd built up, and I was doing probably 40 miles every day.
Is that what you tried to set out, is an average of 40 mile a day?
The average was just 26 a day. I just thought it'd be cool to do a marathon a day, like sort of, no one, I don't think, had put a streak of marathons like that together day after day for, like sort of that amount of distance. And so I thought, right, let's just see where we can get. And then eventually you'd find it wasn't easy, but your body adapts to it in a way that at the end of the day, you'd be no more tired. And this isn't me being flippant, it's actually true. And I think a lot of people, if they didn't break down with injury, and it would say the same, you're no more tired than after a normal day at work. And it'd just be, you get in and you'd be knackered, and you'd eat and you'd go to bed, and you'd wake up in the morning, you'd do it again. And
mate, so I hear stories of people doing a marathon a day for 30 days. I've never heard of someone doing a marathon.
If they get to 30, they could do 60, they could do 90.
Yeah, I need to keep on reminding yourself of your, like, it's the bio of your...
So
it's 1,500. And how many marathons is that in 15,607?
It was pretty much because there was a couple of extra bits and bobs I did include. I did Boston Marathon when I was over there as a bonus.
It's 600 miles. Is that how many miles is it?
Yeah,
600 marathons.
600 marathons, yeah. Pretty much on the nose. And so, so that 600 marathons in 422 days.
I feel like this hasn't had the kind of the attention it needs.
The thing is, it wasn't what it was. The only thing I'm sad about it is my goal. There was two goals. One, to do the thing, which we did. I don't know how we did it, but we did. So we'll put that to one side. And then the other one is I was desperate to raise $1 million for charity. That was my thing. I wanted to do $1 million, and the number I ended up raising was impressive. And whenever I say it to everybody, they're like, dude, what are you sad about that for? It's because it wasn't $1 million. So we raised about sort of 60 grand in total. But I think as a charity thing, it was just too long. I think so people got involved in with the story and stuff like that, and then almost forgot the point. And then because of the London Marathon, got loads of publicity when I came back, because I came back so we could have the baby and then go back to the end. And it got a load of publicity, and I didn't do a big charity push then. And then when the end of the run happened less than a month later, I was like, right, charity time. And then the media were just like, oh, we've already covered you like a month ago. And then it was just literally, sort of, it was the equivalent of, if Usain Bolt had done the wave to the crowd, and then somebody said, dude, it's actually 110 meters. And, so he wouldn't have got the gold. And
I feel like some of these big kind of thing, none of them I've heard of any more impressive than what you've done, but it's all about the media team, isn't it? And the professional media team pushing it and doing it the way that they do it. It's catching
the wave, because I'd never name any high profile charity things because I'm made up for them, and it's not a competition and that sort of thing. But then I never say it, but then a lot of my mates will message and just go, oh, dude, yours should have done better, shouldn't it? And I just go, I don't know if it is that, But I brought that point up with the charities, and so there were two of them: the World Wildlife Fund, which everybody knows about, and it's nice and big, and so and then the other one was Peace Direct. And the reason why I chose these two charities is because when Forrest runs across the Mississippi in the film, they say, "Are you running for women's rights, for the homeless, for world peace, the environment, or for animals?" And I wanted to do a charity for each of them initially, but it would have been too unwieldy. But between the pair of them, Peace Direct is a small charity, but what it does, it tries to stop conflict before it blows up in a place. So like in Zimbabwe, they've got like super macho society, isn't it? So they've got massive women's empowerment programs there. In the Congo, they'll rescue child soldiers, but instead of just like the traditional thing of going, "We've got you out the jungle, great," they'll just go, "Here's a house, here's a job." And so there's no need for them to go back.
So it's a full like package, if you like. Yeah.
But just smart like stuff, I'll never get the sort of the publicity. So they were super grateful of the publicity, and of course the money would have meant more to them. But then with the World Wildlife Fund, they just said, "We reckon you saved us $250,000 in advertising." So that made me then just go, I'm not bothered about the actual, because to be fair for the WWF, for them it's about action, and sort of they just need money to survive, sort of, and then it's the governments and stuff like that, because the WWF works by making governments change. It's not necessarily about this, and it's about education. So
sure.
I think it paid off, and I was happy with that. And so when I said to him, "So you promise you're not disappointed?" and he said, "We promise." I was cool then.
Right, so because you do sit, and no disrespect, anyone who raises money for charity, brilliant. But you just look at the state. You look at the size of the US there, and you think how many times across, and then you compare it to, again, I want to be respectful here, but I don't know, a boy band JLS in a bathtub of beans saying "call up for Red Nose Day" or whatever.
Yeah,
and you've given up 30 grand of your own money. You've given up.
428
days.
But if you consider it, let's just say at the end of that year, I hadn't done it, and I'd had 30 grand in my pocket. I could have done a load of things. I could have just given that money to charity, which, if you've only got 30 grand only, but if you've not got 300 million in the bank, if you've got 30 grand in the bank, generally, you probably need the majority of that you think you do for your normal life. So you're not going to give it away. But I could have done, but I wouldn't have had the adventure.
Yeah.
And so I just sort of consider it as, there's enough people who go and volunteer and work at an orangutan sanctuary, and sort of they're not getting paid anything, but they're giving up a year of their life. And so as a result, I managed to have a massive adventure, raise sort of, more than double what I put in myself, and the just giving. So say for example, where somebody would send me 20 quid to go and pay for half a motel or stuff like that, I know what that figure is, and I'm giving that money back to charity sort of as I get that back, so, and just because I felt uncomfortable with it at the time. And it was a mate of mine who said, well, there's two school of thought. A mate of mine just said, "Oh, if you don't set it up, I'll set it up for you. And if people want to give, they will give. You're not forcing them." And then Nadine said, people do just give them for a boob job. So, there's no, there's no problem in that, So just crack on. And but eventually I'll give it back, because it all stemmed from something. Well, you said, where did it all come from? My mum's not around anymore, but she sort of said, do one thing in your life that makes a difference. And I never knew what that was going to be, and I didn't go looking for it either. But every now and again you think, oh, was this the thing? When I did the PhD, because it was involved in research and vaccine developments and stuff, it's why I know sort of with the old, I know that anti-vax stuff is all rubbish, because I'm not big pharma, and I just sort of worked in a place and I saw what they do, so at least I can get involved in that debate. But that didn't end up being the difference. And so I think if you go looking for it and you find it, great. But when we talked about taking the opportunity before, whether it's just your dream, but it might be your opportunity to make a difference as well. And if something happens and it's there and it's nagging at you, just winking at you, sometimes just go, sod it. It's going to do it, sort of, it'll be very rare that you'll come back from it a ruined person, and poorer for the experience as well, sort of. I think you'll always take something out, and I'm not going to miss that 30 grand, I'm sure of it.
No. And also a big thing I always feel is when I went nowhere near what you did, obviously just went travelling when I was 21 across Asia and stuff, and all the people who I met who were on their own were just so confident because they had to find friends, they had to find their way through different places, they had to navigate through finding hostels and that sort of thing. And just that, from what you've just said before, of going to a bar on your own, majority of people wouldn't go to a bar on their own. I think they'd want someone else.
In the middle of fucking wherever.
Yeah, in the middle of Liverpool, they probably wouldn't go to a bar on their own. Whereas in the middle of
Deep South.
Arkansas or, Tennessee or wherever.
It was just where all the best stories were. Like, I went into this place in Corfu in upstate New York, and I walked in there, like, running kit. I wasn't dressed up like Forest Gump, but I had a beard, I had a cap on, I was in running kit. And this fella, like, sort of just comes up to me, he's in a wheelchair, he just comes at me and just goes, "I'm Lieutenant Dan." And I just thought, "Mate, this is brilliant." And he just it was Mother's Day, and he just says, "What are you drinking?" "There's a girl at the bar called Jenny, you've got to go and meet her." And so they ended up putting me up for the night. They bought me food, they got me a couple of beers that night, and so one of the fellas on the way out gave me $20 and stuff. And it's one of these things, is when you talk to people. Now, before I end up going solo, this chap came up to me sort of like he was in a car, and he went, "Mate, are you running? Well, are you walking across America?" And I was just like, well, slightly smart. I was like, "Well, I'm running," like, but and I'd spent 20 minutes taking photos of this sunset, and I was only about 200 meters away from the camper, so I could have easily not done that, never met him, gone in the camper, and I said to him, like, "Oh yeah," and he said, "I've just been walking across America, and so, like, can I get a photo with you?" So I got a photo, and I said, like, "Were you supported with these guys?" He went, "No, I just did it on my own, pushing a stroll." And I was like, "Mate, that's what I'm going to do. Where did you camp? Like, how did..." And he said, "Well, sometimes I'd, like, hide in a place. Sometimes I'd stay in a motel. Sometimes a campsite. A lot of the time I'd just go up and knock on someone's door and say, 'Can I camp in your yard?'" And I said, "Well, how do you know where to knock?" And he goes, "You'll know where not to knock," And so you get a feel. But on the very first night, I'm solo, and I knock on this one door, family car up the front. I just thought maybe a beat old pickup truck with like a rundown appearance to the house is not the place. Just family car. Knock on the door. Door opens. "This is what I'm doing. Can I camp in your yard?" "No." And I was just like, "Mate, that's fine, don't worry," because you're not going to argue your point, are you? So then I then go down the road, and then sort of about a couple of miles later, it's pitch black now, and there's a caravan, or a trailer as they call it, up the drive, and I think, that's got my name on it. So knock on the door, and nothing happens, and then the blinds twitch, and then nothing happens for a minute, and I think, "Oh, I'm just going to get off here, this is weird." And I'm down the side of his driveway, and he comes out and he goes, "What do you want?" And like, it's pitch black in the middle of Tennessee, right? And I go, "Oh, this is what I am. This is what I'm doing. Can I camp in your garden?" He goes, "Have you got any weapons on you?" I'm like, No, I'm English. Just me razor sharp wit." and he goes, "Good, because I got plenty." He doesn't laugh. He just carries on with this thing. He knew what he was going to say. Pulls out this 10-inch hunting knife from behind his back. And I'm like, "You're kidding me." And so I was like, "Mate, I just wanted somewhere to stay. Don't worry about it. I'm off down the road." He goes, "If anyone hurts my little girl, they're going to get hurt real bad." And I'm just like, "Mate, it's fine." He goes, "Hang on, I'm just going to go call my wife at the local store, see if you can camp around the back there." So he goes in, comes out about 20, 30 seconds later. There's no chance he's made that phone call. He goes, "It's okay, I trust you. Come in." And I'm just like, "Oh man, I don't want to come in. I don't want to come in." But like, no. I just thought, if I run and he's a mentalist, he'll get me. I've seen his little daughter. He's surely not going to fill at me in front of her, So I go in there. She's a typical house, toys on the floor. And he goes, "You hungry?" I'm like, "Yeah, man." He goes, "Yeah, do you want some chili?" I was like, "Thanks." Yeah, he went, "Do you want some Coke?" And I was like, great. And so he gets me a can of Coke, and he's cooking away, and he's doing this. It's 10 minutes in, I'm watching his whole move, and like, he never really turns around much apart from over his shoulder. And then 10 minutes in, he looks at this knife in his hand and just puts it down on the side. And she's like, "Oh, what's that for?" And I was just thinking, oh my God.
Wow.
So yeah, eventually the night's great. He's a local house builder and stuff like that. He apologised for his house being a mess because he was doing it up. And I said, "Oh, I've just got to go and put my tent up outside." And he goes, "Don't worry about that, son. Stay in the trailer." And I'm like, get in.
Yes.
And so he goes out there, he takes his massive deer hunting rifle out of it because he obviously still doesn't trust me 100%. But that's fine, because as soon as he'd gone, I was like, lock on the inside. And it was fine, wakes me up at 6 o'clock the next morning, I've got all my arms and stuff like that, and then just literally head out the door, and
that
great.
was that, yeah.
That was that. Yeah.
They're the stories though, mate, they're like the best that you'd be telling all the time.
But it's people, and this fella I met in Arizona, the point of his mission was called Let's Talk, and it was to basically put your phone down and to actually engage with people. And he says that's the thing. And like, when we were with Nadine in the RV, we had a great time. It was fantastic. We spoke to some people, but we had great nights, like dinners in the van and stuff like that. Got through a lot of States craft beers,
Yeah,
but it was only when I was on my own and I was forced to engage with people, because you close the door and your door's closed. We saw people sometimes looking at what we'd written on the side of the van, and why didn't we go out and say, hello, what are you doing? Because they'd probably just go, oh, I'm really sorry. So we didn't, because we didn't want to intrude on them. They didn't want to intrude on us and knock. But when I was just literally there with a pram, and people say, what are you doing? I go, do this. And even when I was couch surfing and I'd had an awful night and someone was kind enough to put me up for the night and said, okay, great, we'll do your dinner. I'd get there and thinking, oh, God, I wish I was in a hotel. I don't want to talk to anyone.
Because you just want to
eat and I want to go to bed. And you get there and you go, I'm going to smile and be nice and stuff like that. But literally within 2 minutes of them just going, hey, how's it going? You literally just go...
Shut up.
Fine. And your mood would go through like that. And when we shut ourselves off from people, you're thinking, I don't want to impose myself on them and I don't want them to impose myself on me. But if you'd have done the same thing, it was a mutual benefit and everybody walks away feeling better.
We say it all the time on a podcast. It's probably, me and Tom try and do 1 or 2 of these a week, and for that time, like, it's very rare. It's sad, but it's very rare that for a couple of hours, my phone, I don't even think of it.
Yeah.
It's not like, and it's because of this podcast, you know what I mean? You sit here and I'm fully engaged and used to, and I'm like, don't care what's going on in the outside world, and it's very rare where you'd have those conversations or that time with people when
you're not so present.
Well, something like when was the last time you watched a film or watched a match and didn't see what one of your mates has said on WhatsApp or something like that?
Doesn't happen anymore.
Just put it away. I actually did it with the match a few weeks ago, and I was forced on because my battery had run out. You know what? I was like, God, I love football, it's boss. And, but like sometimes I just go, what was the game like? I go, oh, it was all right. And they go, what do you mean it was all right? So you won like 7-0,
Yeah.
I was just all right because you weren't present.
It's so true what you're saying, and that thing of like, God, I don't know, like if you were single through there and you might have ended up meeting your future wife or something, your future husband or something, you might have met your best friend. I don't know, you just, those opportunities you wouldn't know about because you've just been closed off from the world.
Yeah.
There was a film, when you talk about going to different people's houses, there was a documentary I watched a long time ago. I think Seth Rogen was involved in it somehow, and it was a Craigslist documentary about them. I think they were couch surfing across America using Craigslist, I think. I can't remember. I'll have to find it in a minute, because people who are listening, it is a brilliant... And at the end of it, they'd met the most diverse range of people.
Yeah.
And it literally wasn't about them getting from New Orleans to there, to there, to there. It was literally about the meeting of people and finding out different stories and going to different bars and just all that culture in essence.
Well, what I'd say to someone, you brought up the idea of a road trip before. By all means, do your Route 66 and stay in some of the proper family-owned motels that are there, because it's quite tragic. Route 66 is just slowly decaying. That basil plant you got from Tesco and stuff, and it's you get the odd leaf off it, but it's a shadow of its former self. So stay in those places, but just go on couch surf. It was a little different for me when I was running, because I was very limited. I could only cover 30 to 60 miles a day. And so sometimes you're in the middle of nowhere, small towns, it was actually mid-sized towns that were best, because it was personal and there was enough people for someone to be on couch surfing. And you're in the car, you can always get to a place that will do it, and just offer to stay there. And if you want to give them some money, crack on, but they'll never ask for it, and stuff. I obviously didn't, because I was being tight, when I was going across, But, they certainly don't expect it, and so you could go to, somewhere like Couchsurfing, take your host out to the local, diner and pay for the dinner that night for them putting you up. It'd be cheaper than the motel. And it's proper America, so it's just
cool.
great. Even when I was running on the interstate, sometimes you needed to do it because it was the direct way. You'd have phone reception and stuff like that. But if you found the sweet spot of a road that was had just enough services to keep you going from place to place, that was the real America. And by the time, even when I was on the interstate, I knew that there were great stories passing me by, like, 4 miles to the south.
If you'd have just been a little bit.
If I could have done it, but getting in a car's no excuse. Even on a bike, and you can cover 100 miles a day, you can get anywhere.
What was the reason then that your missus had to go back with the camper van then? What was I
think by the time we got to Tennessee, out of the original 30 grand, I think we had about 2 grand left. And like, if you consider Tennessee would have been 3,000 miles into a 15,000 mile journey, that you can do the maths there. And so it's a case of and it was stressful at this point because, like, I was tired. I was picking up the odd injury, like I tore my quad in Arkansas. So I was running I was actually listening to the match on the internet the day before, and my leg was hurting, and I thought, no, I'm going to ignore that and just go through. And the next day I was running for an interview, trying to get to Memphis for 12:30, and I found my leg hurt less if I ran fast. So I did that, and I was obviously just literally going ping, ping, ping on a quad fiver each time. And so by the time I got over the Mississippi for the second time, I had to walk the last 12 days, so 12 hours, sorry. So I literally was walking in Memphis, and the irony was not lost on me. I got there, and so there's a little stress like that, the financial stress, and like, I don't know if I was a great person to be around, all of the time. And so Nadine, it would have been good for her to have gone home at that point because I got to do it on my own, and we just couldn't have afforded to. And I didn't want to be at that point where we're sat, maybe, I don't know, in rural Virginia when the card comes out the machine and no money comes out, and then we just go, that's it. That was a sort of, at the time we'd have seen it as a waste of time and money. I know we'd have looked back on it now, but it was self-preservation, sort of let's see if I can crack on, and if I fail, I had $10 in my phone case. And I was just like, the only time I'm ever going to go home, if that's the only $10 I've got, and I have to flag someone down and say, can you just get me to the nearest town, sort of, and then that'd have been it. I'd have gone home, and I never spent that $10. So it was always there,
That's so cool. Have you still got the $10?
No, I spent it.
Should have framed it as something that would have been cool.
Well, the only the one bit of money that I sort of do have a permanent reminder of was I was in a karaoke bar in Dixon, Tennessee. So this was only about 3 days in. The first few days in Tennessee were just off the chain for stories. You could write a book on my first week in Tennessee.
Why haven't you?
Well, I have.
What's the book called?
Well, it will be called Becoming Forest, but there's sort of, it's
not out yet then?
It's a watch this space jobby.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll have to get you back on before the book comes out to plug it again.
That'll do the job, yeah. Like, sort of, there's enough stories in there, I'll be able to put the bits that didn't make the cut in the book, so that it'll be like this extra thing, isn't it? And I do a Beatles song first because you've got to, haven't you? So I did The Long and Winding Road and murdered it, sort of, McCartney would have literally pointed me out at Glastonbury and go, were you the fella that murdered The Long and Winding Road? And so the next time I went up, there was this fella, and he actually liked it, and he went, what are you singing next? And he was like, huge fella, and he looked the sort who might have been involved in Dixon's alternative industry, shall we say. And I went, I'm doing Back in Black by AC/DC. And he went, don't mess it up. That's my favourite song. And so I do it, probably mess it up. And then I walk past him. He's just like, that was great. Come with me. And so he basically walks to the toilets and gets his wallet out. And I just think, what's happening here? And I thought, I was going to say to him, oh, mate, I can't. I've got to, it's not me bag, it's not me bag. And he pulls, there's a white wedge of notes, and he pulls out a $100 bill off it. And I went, mate, I can't take $100 off you. And because basically you got to the point where you didn't generally look at the notes because, what do you say? If it's like, do you react different if it's a $1 or a $20? Well, you shouldn't. But it's only because of the size of the wedge. I just thought, oh my God, what is that? $100. And he went, I'm good for it, don't worry. And so I kept that all the way from there up to Maine. And the last time I was in New England was about 15 years previously, and I bought a cool indie CD from an independent record shop. And so when I went back from Maine, I got to a place called New Brunswick, and the new Maximo Park album was out. So I cracked that $100 on it. So I've got the CD. So that $100 will always be immortalised, in that album. So
even though you say that about speaking to people, the fact that you've had the courage. Some people haven't even got the courage to get up on karaoke. The fact you've done that, and it's led to getting $100, and it's little things like just jumping outside your comfort zone, trying new things, and you just don't know where it's going to lead to, do you? Yeah,
well, it is a huge confidence builder, and I think I think when I woke up that next morning, and I wasn't dead. Like later on, I spoke to a cop and he went, "You went on someone's porch in Carroll County and you didn't get shot. Do not ever do that again, son." And I was just like, ha 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 ha. And he went, "You don't understand. I am deadly serious. Do not go knocking on people's doors in the middle of the night in Tennessee," because basically I actually discussed this with the fella, and he said, "I apologise for me pulling a knife on you." I was just, "That's fine, man. What's a hunting night between mates, And he just said, "People don't knock on doors around here," and he says, "If they do, they certainly don't tippy tappy, because it's literally bang, bang, bang. I need help right now, And so when the little. It would have been like the start of a horror film for him, and he's just like, "Oh my God, what's going on here?" So he was more frightened than me, So if he wasn't giving it the big one on the doorstep, he was genuinely scared and stuff. Because I could have had a gun, why not?
Yeah.
And,
but when you open up with the line of, because I presume the line I would always open up with is, I'm running across America. That just opens. I feel like if someone came to my house and said, "Can I stay in your front garden?" I'd be like, wait, what? Well, but if they say I'm running across the length of England, or the UK, I'd be like, yeah, mate.
Well, I did explain. I actually missed a little bit out from the first thing, because when the blinds twitched, and I just waited there for a bit, the actual the "who is it" line happened through a closed door, and he went, "Who is it?" And I was just like, "Rob from England." Yeah. And so this whole thing, and so then nothing happened for a minute, and then I thought, oh well, he's decided he might have been Scottish, mightn't he? It's just like sod, yeah. And so I just walked away, and then that thing happened. But I think because it was so fantastical, most of the time people would ask you, and then they'd say "What are you doing?" and go, "Well, I'm running across America." And then it would actually be about a minute later into the conversation where the cogs had turned around, just go, "When you're running, you mean in a car, right?" And I was like, no, I'm running. And he's like, "What, a bike?" And I was like, no, literally, I'm running, across. And he'd be like, "Man, that's crazy, And so, and then that would be the thing, and
that'd be the icebreaker, really.
Yeah.
I've found. Sorry to interrupt. I've just found the documentary. If anyone's interested, it's called Craigslist Joe, and it was the guy who, one of the assistant directors in The Hangover, did it, and he hired. So he wanted to travel across America, only contacting people on Craigslist.
Yeah.
And he spent the month without any form of currency, relying on the kindness and generosity of Craigslist users. And so he filmed it, and he hired the cameraman on Craigslist a month before.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Honestly, it's really. If anyone wants to watch it, I don't know if it's on Netflix or not, but it's called Zach Galifianakis. I can never say his name, but he helped fund it.
What's it called, the film?
Craigslist Joe. It's a documentary, yeah. It's brilliant. Really, really good.
Obviously, having a camera there would have helped with the money, but still my genuine feeling is if you just did it on your own and said, "Listen, I'm just doing this and I'm writing a story and stuff like that, if there's any chance of this and stuff, I think you would do it. If you could tie in the right route and include Tennessee in it, because it's just great, that's a great road trip. Memphis through to Nashville, through to Knoxville, through to Bristol. That would be, you trace pretty much all of popular music history there, and it'd be great. Yeah,
I've heard Knoxville's really expensive.
I just didn't notice it. I got put up there by a Liverpool fan, actually, but I only found that out midway through. All my beers were in a brewery there, so got fed, and it looks like a great party town. It's weird though, because it's a massive student town. The stadium there is 102,000 seater. It's one of the biggest going, and I just thought this would be a great place for a pub crawl, but of course all the students aren't even 21, aren't they? So it's just
of course, yeah.
Those stadiums, I've seen them a few times, and they're just, I mean, college football in America is
it's huge,
102,000 people in the stadium.
Well, I met the coach of LSU, Louisiana State University, who's a fella called Kadavis Robinson, and he's a 2-time Olympian, and a mate of mine sort of used to study there, and so he's like, I'll try and put you in touch with him. Got that, and I managed to run a lap of the track with him. So fortunately he's into powerlifting these days, so I could just about keep up, and he still went easy on me. But he took me into the students' gym, student athletes' gym, and it was incredible. Like, imagine the best gym you've ever been to in your life, and then double the size, double the bossness of it, and also have free smoothies, free cereal bars, everything like that. And I was like, this is the greatest place I've ever been in. And he just went, you ain't seen the football gym yet? And that was just like, basically, this is like people who play like student volleyball and student sort of, lacrosse.
Really, yeah.
And it's like the sporting thing over there. Like, I remember when I was in uni, we got to the cup final, and there was like 100 people there, and that probably included both teams and the benches. And like, they'll have 100,000 people there. Could you imagine being involved in that? Like,
It's
when you're like
insane,
18, 19, like, I know there's a few Premiership footballers who get to experience that at that age. But
102.
Yeah.
I wonder what the biggest stadium size is in the UK.
Old Trafford, isn't it? Probably.
Wembley, innit? 90.
Oh, Wembley,
of course,
sorry,
yeah. Is it 90 Wembley?
I think
Yeah.
so, yeah. And so imagine going to Wembley like as one of those kids like to see a concert, just go, I've played in bigger. Yeah. And you just go, my ass, have you? Go, when? You go, when I was at university. And just be like, mate, you need to lay off the drugs.
Mate, so how many on the route? How many times did you hit ocean?
So once in Biola Battery. Second time was in Santa Monica. So I got a little vial of water from the Atlantic, and then I took it with me to the Pacific. And then that was the first time I met someone through like the running community who had ran across America before, called Chris Finnell. He's actually one of the few people who's ran every London marathon, and he was an invaluable source of experience. Like when I had my first injury meltdown, he said, like, no, you're just running too fast, you need to slow down, do this, do that. And he said it doesn't count unless you get in the water. It's none of these go to the ends of the pier. So I had to like run to the down the pier into the Pacific, and I got a little vial of water from the Pacific, and then I mixed it and I took that with me the whole way round. So the next ocean was in Maine. It was in April. It's still freezing and it was dead stony, so I wasn't going to swim in that one. So I just got my feet in. Next one was in
so Maine, where the sea is there,
where the sea is now,
as in alphabetical sea, not
yeah.
It's big for lobster roll, isn't it, in Maine?
Well, there's a fantastic place called Red's Eats in Wiscasset, and I ran past that place. It's on MSN's place in every state that you have to eat in, and I think I got 2 of them. I had a Billy Bob's Barbecue in Decatur, Alabama, and then Red's in Wiscasset, and I ran past there. And so I didn't have the lobster. I think I had chicken nuggets and chips. Got that free. And then I ended up on one of the few roads that I ran in the opposite direction, only for the short space. I ran past there again and they gave me another one, but I had scallops that time. They were great. So if you're ever in Maine, go to Wiscasset and go to Red's Eats.
Yeah.
And the mad thing is, right, this is the whole serendipity of it, right? So the lady who owns Red's called Cindy. So I don't know what her surname is, but it begins with a C. It's not Cindy Crawford. And when I stayed in there was, again, this is a couch surfing thing. A fella said, okay, whatever you need, I'll sort you out. And he looked after us, and we stayed there on the night. He was a lobster fisherman, and his boat was in his yard. It was up for the summer and stuff, and it was called the Cindy Sea. And I just said, I was talking about it. He went, did you go past Red's? And I went, yeah, I had my dinner there. And goes, that was named after her. And so
it's mad, isn't it?
Mate, no wonder you're writing a book, because there's stuff. I'm
honestly,
sure I could pick out any town or any.
Your memory is fantastic as well, by the way.
Wait, if you sit down and you write a book, man, it drives it in, But I had to write this all down, and then you'd pick things together because you'd meet somebody and you'd kick yourself because you didn't write the name down, but you'd see on Facebook they'd make a comment on it and go, right, I'm not forgetting you ever again. So
were you writing a journal? Were you then?
Little bit. And originally, when I got to Tennessee, and we all the way to Tennessee, I had a laptop, and so I could type easily and stuff like that. So I'd write a blog, and it was like pretty ham-fisted, but it would, it'd do the job. Then after that, I would literally just go like sort of, podcast Andy Tom, then sort of, Chippy T. And then just little words like that, and then I go, I remember Andy. So we were talking about this, and then I could say we were in this cool room, and you could fill the story in. And eventually you pick it back, and it's almost like a mind map, you know, like sort of going back and picking these places out, you know, and some obviously people were more like, you know, memorable than others, like, and, like it's a good story. I've got to bring this fella up. He's called Ramey. Obviously running for the WWF, you'd think I'm very anti-hunting and sort of, you know, that's pretty much right, you know. And I was in Kansas in a place called Downs, and it was the first day of the pheasant hunting season. Now, pheasant hunting over there is like the most working class thing going. It's not like here.
Is it really? Yeah.
I'm in a. Am I allowed to swear on this?
Of course you are. Yeah.
Cool. And so, I was in this shop getting some like food. He's like, "Hey, wanker!" And I'm like. I didn't hear this. And he go, "Yeah, you tosser." And I'm like, "Oh, it's right, somebody knows a few English words." And he was just like, "What are you doing in Downs, Kansas?" And so I'm like, "All right, we're running through." And he's just like, "How'd you get a room in this hotel?" Because like it was booked up for months in advance. His dogs had their own room, by the way, but this place is booked up for like 10 years in advance. We got a cancellation on the day. And he's just like, "This is incredible." We took him and his mate out, because I had a mate over, Ben, who was doing a bit of filming at the time. And we took Ramey and his mate Kirk out drinking that night, drank them under the table. For the first time, Kirk missed the first day of pheasant hunting season because he had a bit of flu. And the next day I'm running past and I see like the high-vis fanning out across the field, and I just hear, "Run, Forrest." And later on I say to Ramey, "Was that you?" And it was. And he said, "If you ever come back through Alabama, look me up." And so I'm running through Alabama. I knew roughly where he was. I was heading towards the vague direction of his house, and I broke down with injury. I was on the fifth leg. I thought it was going to be this lap of honour, and it wasn't. It was just like an extended lap of agony. And I got to this sort of point, and I just called him up and I said, like, "Oh, Ramey, you're going to have to come and pick us up." And he said, "Where are you?" And I gave the address, and he just went, "You're just outside my house." And he literally, that, you know, sort of, I'd not looked it up because he actually has got two houses. One is like an old farm that he rents out, and then the other one where he lives with his family. And then he came, and I was literally standing outside this house that I'd never had the address of. And, you know, and of course I was in the vicinity. It wasn't as if like, you know, sort of, he lives in Peru and he, you know, did that. And he ended up at the ferry finish, him and his little lad, Ben, they came out to Arizona and Utah because he said he wanted his lad Ben to see somebody saying, "I'm going to do this," and then doing it. Yeah. And he came out there, and then fairly flippantly, you know, I end up proposing to Nadine at the end of the run.
Oh wow!
That's cool. So at the end of the fact that, because you got to get there and say, "I'm pretty tired, I think I'll go home now." So then of course I didn't go home. I carried on walking to Nadine, got down on one day, and she said yes. And it could have been the most humiliating climb down of all time, couldn't it? 150 people there, and then she just goes, "I just don't think this is the time or place to ask." And I said to Ramey, "You're going to come to the wedding, aren't you?" He just goes, "Yeah." And of course you think that's a load of rubbish, but you know, in America when they say "have a nice day," they actually genuinely want you to have a nice day. It's not just rubbish, you know. And you know, lo and behold, like sort of not just Ramey, but Ben, his other son Owen, and his missus Charlotte, like sort of come over from Alabama down to because Kent, where Nadine's from, and come to the wedding.
Did it really? Yeah. When did you get married then?
So it was October of last year. So you know,
good timing.
Exactly.
And it came all the way over that, mate. That's incredible.
Yeah, no. And we actually had a few people come over. Like a mate of mine used to go to school with. He lives in San Fran now. He came over for it, and there was, you know, we talked about the financial side of things and stuff. Like I said, well, there's a lady called Tivy who was the mother-in-law to be of the lad who went to LSU, who introduced me to Cadavis Robinson. She became my number one fan, and there was a point where I was literally, the card went in and there was no money, and then Tivy just went, "Don't worry about money for a little bit," and like without her, the run just wouldn't have happened. And like, so, you know, she's literally an angel. She came over with the guys as well, you know, and so they were like right by the top table. And it was just like the lengths people go to, you know, because obviously I'm giving it the chat about sort of, well, I hope I'm not being given too much chat about how big it was and stuff. No. But
I'm just in awe of this, mate. Carry on.
We know it's big. And I like to sometimes think about it in the third person because it weirds me out otherwise and stuff. But it would have been nothing without the, you know, the people said, "Oh, I can't believe you did the run unsupported," and I just said, "Well, I wasn't unsupported. I had, literally thousands of people, you know, and even like sort of sometimes like sort of you know, I was sat outside this gas station, and a fella just comes up and goes, "Yeah, there you go, mate." And I wasn't, obviously, I was sort of homeless, I guess, but, you know, I couldn't think quick enough to say, I'm not homeless. But then again, I thought, you know, like my mate said, if he wants to give the money, he'll give the money, you know. And so I just gave him the thumbs up and went in, got myself some donuts.
You know what's so amazing, mate, about this as well is me and Tom recorded the podcast earlier, and we were just talking about how I personally have really struggled, you know, through 2020, just through with COVID, and for a number of reasons, from just, I love my job, that's been cancelled, and then I felt like really lonely at times. I felt fed up and not being able to do the things I enjoy and stuff, and you know, you see just divide everywhere you look. I kind of see.
That's the sad thing, isn't it? It's the fact that we can't really discuss anything anymore. Now we're about becoming a shouting match. Yeah,
exactly. And I hear you now speaking about all this adventure and the strangers coming together and people just being nice, and it fills me with hope to think, actually, you know what, 2020 was just a bit of a,
little roadblock.
It's not a patch on what the world is like.
Well, I've used this run because I've really struggled this year. You think, oh God, like you're just newly married, you got like a lovely little daughter and stuff like that. You got a job, you got a house, but I've really struggled, and I know I've not struggled anywhere near as much as some people. So I'm not going to get the violin out and stuff, but I've struggled more than I'm used to, and I've used the run for support, not because of like I can achieve this. It's purely because of what I saw in people over there, and this whole "Make America Great Again" bollocks. Just, you can say like "Stop America Getting Rubbish." That'd be a better sort of trademark. And one of the couch surfing people we did was a fella in Nebraska called Marty. He was 60, and it was the first couch surfers he'd ever held. It was me and another like sort of fairly like probably liberal thinking lady from Canada. We ended up talking about universal healthcare, and he was staunchly against it, but gave good reasons for it. So he's obviously as Republican as they come, but his kindness was massive, And we had this debate, and it was reasons, and it wasn't just like, you shouldn't have universal healthcare because you're not paying your taxes. And I just thought, God, we can talk like this.
Yeah.
And it is, unfortunately, so this is the good side of the media where, it's a forum for people to chat. But then the other side, the big media, even if it's not doing it deliberately, just because it gets the ratings, is pitching people against each other.
100%,
it's not what you need to do. Why doesn't the channel come out and just go, we're actually going to appeal to the people who just want to get it sorted, and then people will watch that.
Yeah. Mate, you hit the nail on the head there. You really did hit the nail on the head with that statement. I think it's so true.
We've had people on the podcast, mate. One of our favourite ones that we always talk about, and I've always grew up, and me dad caught me smoking weed when I was a kid, and I had this big panic attack, thought me went dead paranoid. It's quite funny. And my dad
wasn't the weed, was it?
My dad was like, don't mind you having a beer, just don't do drugs. And as you get older and you see people start taking coke, and I just suddenly I joined the Marines at 17, so didn't do drugs anyway. And then suddenly just formed an opinion of like, drugs are for mugs, all drugs are bad, and that's that. And that was my opinion for a while. And almost to a point where I looked down my nose at people. Yeah. And, wrongly now, when we had a guy on the podcast who was an undercover cop and infiltrated drug gangs and stuff like that. And he put his point across about legalising drugs and how drugs aren't this thing that we think they are and stuff. And fuck me, I come away from that podcast going, wow, oh my God, what a sheltered view I had of the world when I thought everyone who touched the drug was a fucking idiot or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And that's what we've loved about the podcast. We've had so many different people on, from people who've done crazy things like run across America like you, to hostage negotiators, to comedians, and just learning about their trade and what they've doing. We say it's like going back to school for me. This just learning about a different way of life rather than mainstream media telling you what to think and how to behave. Speaking to people and learning their life experiences.
Now get back in your box and think in that little narrow straight line.
Exactly. It's been amazing, and it's some of the like
honestly,
listen to your life experiences like that, and like I say, people who listen to the podcast and enjoy it, knowing that like I say, the world's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, it really isn't. It really. Mate, can I just ask, just completely changing the subject one, because I know with Americans, some of them are against healthcare. What was his reasoning behind? Was it all a tax thing, that they don't want to pay more taxes?
That was the debate. So basically, it was just like, I've paid for this, so why should you benefit from it? And I just said, but the one thing is, like, there'll be people in lower paid jobs. Like I said, the people who like pump your gas, the people who like sort of fold the sheets in your hotel room and stuff like that. Like I met a fella in Columbia, South Carolina. And I said, there was a thing on the telly about universal healthcare, and I said, oh, it's awful, that, man. And he said, yeah, I haven't been to the doctor in 30 years. And I just said, oh, look at you. And he went, I'm dying, man. And I was just like, I said, you work for the big chain? Did you not get health insurance? And he goes, I get a paycheck, and that ain't all that. So, not everybody gets it. And then, of course, when... if you're very, very sort of, middle class and comfortable, you might not notice this sort of thing, but eventually it trickles up, and then sort of this fella who can't sort of, pump the gas stops the police officer from getting to work that day, and then who misses the crime, and then it could be sort of, something awful happens to a member of your family, and it does work. And so then we got to the logistics of it, and he just goes, yeah, well, you guys pay way more taxes than I do. And I said, it's actually not true. I looked into it. We probably do marginally, but not to the point where you wouldn't be able to do that, And of course, if you actually told the drug companies like what the NHS does, you are not selling the drugs in this country at that price. We'll buy them off you, but for this, because the drug companies don't sell that price to us. They don't sell it to sort of South Africa that price. So why do they have to sell it to Americans that price? And because they can, because this insurance sort of thing. And then I said, well, you don't actually pay that much more tax. And he goes, well, your gas is way more higher tax than us. I go, yeah, Marty, but you drive way more than us. And he just goes, well, we've got loads more roads than you to maintain. And I just thought, you've got me there. I can't really, but it wasn't like us shouting match,
really good.
And otherwise we could never miss that comedy point. And we all know that a government, it's a balance, and actually got to pay for this and not pay for that and do that. But eventually, if you get down to the point, if the will is there, it will happen. If the will's there for anything, it'll happen.
I remember listening to an interview. I really like it opening, because I had no idea. I'd heard about that in terms of people like Obamacare and things like that, but I'd never known as to why someone would want to have such a staunch view against it. If it's more a case of them just being Republicans and we hate Republicans or we hate Democrats, it's more like a party line than that. I remember I listened to an interview, and I can't remember who it was, and it was about that, and they were saying, but the rich within America get the rich within the UK get very little for, in essence, what they pay. So if they pay, I don't know, a huge amount in tax, the majority of people within the UK who are super rich don't use NHS, they use private healthcare, and the majority of them don't send their kids to public school. They use private schools, and so I can understand that to a point, but then it was just trying to understand in the
it's all about karma though, and it's like Richard Branson, self-made billionaire, I think he's a lovely fella, but of course you've got to question, is there a need for anybody to be a billionaire? Now, if he's self-made, it means when he was little, he would have used the NHS, and he could have got a disease that could have killed him, and the NHS snuffs it out, and he's absolutely fine. He goes on and becomes this, sort of mega billionaire. And that's what I just sort of think, I'm quite happy with people being millionaires. Wouldn't mind being one myself, but when it gets to the point where it's a billionaire, 1,000 million quid.
It's a lot of money, isn't it?
It's just incredible. You could give away half of that and you would not notice the difference. And you couldn't spend it. To be honest, tell you what, if you're a billionaire and you manage to spend it all, by the time you die and have a boss story out of it, I'll let you have that. And I want to just make sure it gets documented, and I want to read it. But of course they won't. It'll just get passed on. Don't make your kids a billionaire. So what's going on there?
It's true. I know. I just wanted to touch on it because it was interesting for me, and I get both sides of the point. If I get both sides. Like if I'm in America and I earn, I don't know, $2 million a year, and I'm getting taxed, I don't know what the percentage is. If I'm getting half of that, then obviously I'm going to have something to say about it, because I don't want half my money going down the drain. And on the flip side, for people who earn, $10,000 a year, I'd want this, the billionaires to be taxed.
The flip side of that is just go, I know maybe you shouldn't be earning 100 million a year, so just be grateful for the 50 you're getting. You're not doing 50 million pounds worth of work, are you? So, just take that. Yeah. But the weird thing is, obviously, just diving way back to sort of we won't mention racism area and stuff like that. Of course, there's there's the horrible side of things that we see, like these nutcases in Charlottesville and stuff like that. But the real racism over there isn't necessarily what someone says or does to somebody. It's a lack of opportunity, and it's the wealth divide over there that is horrendous. Like when I was running through Memphis, I would see these gated communities with walls outside the houses that are bigger than the top of the roof of my house, and then literally in the next block there would be like these run down ramshackle sort of houses and stuff, and it's just awful. Like I ran through a place called Sparta in Georgia, where they reckon 95% of the people are on or below the poverty line. And I saw this lovely house. It was like, you know what, like a little, it wasn't massive, but probably like a little 3-bed weatherboard and everything like that. It was proper gorgeous, and it was like $40,000. And you think, oh my God. And you know, the fact that you know that somewhere in the USA that house is worth $2 million. And
But just because,
it's because of the opportunity. And that's the real racism, the fact that people can't escape that, you know. And it's entrenched, and that's why, like, sort of, like, you know, Gary, Indiana, where the Jacksons are from, I was just before Chicago when I got there, and it was like I ran through a really rundown area of it, but it was a proper dump and stuff. And so I read up about the story of it, and there was a fellow who was a drug dealer, and he says, like, basically there's no crime. It used to be the murder capital of America, and there's no murders in Gary anymore because they run out of people to sell drugs to, and they run out of people to kill because there's just no jobs there. So everybody who's white and could afford to get out got out, and then it's just like basically this sort of town that's been left there. And I actually sort of wrote in the notes for the book, because obviously we didn't know if Mr. Trump was going to be in for another 4 years or not, and I said basically, if at the end, because he was pitching it to the middle America thing, right, I've got a massive soft spot for Trump voters now, which sounds really weird, and people just go, I've just switched off. Well, you've missed out on the point here. Like, the Trump voters you see on the telly aren't the real Trump voters. The Trump voters are the people who lost the job that would have voted Labour. We've seen it happen in the same place.
Yeah.
And they're just desperate. They didn't vote for Trump because, like, of his private life. They didn't vote because of his money or because of his views on sort of, you know, race, or they just wants the bloody job, you know, and stuff. And so it's the thing that, you know, and I said, if in 8 years' time I came back to Gary and things had changed, then regardless of how we got there and whether you liked it or not, I would say Trump was a man of his word. And if he, or in turn Joe Biden, doesn't do that, then they're both full of shit, you know. And so that's what they've got to do.
Yeah, I think we might have spoke about that before. Like, the economy was flying under Trump, wasn't it? And it's that kind of thing. It's like, if from a personal point of view, you know, it's such a hard and horrible position to be put in, but it's like, okay, this guy comes across as a bit of a dick, he's a bit of a racist, bit of a sexist, but I know I'm going to be in a job and I can provide for my family.
Principles are wonderful, but you can't eat them. You know?
It's so true, isn't it?
That's
and I could kind of see that as well.
I mean, there was a time where I feel like, especially in the UK, the media is so anti-Trump, and you know, whether that's right or wrong, but you know, we had this discussion with Dean, and when we were talking about the election, and I feel that even having an open, honest conversation about Trump before the election was just like a frowned upon thing of like, why should you even give it the time of day? And you know, if I was in middle America and, you know, COVID was at the height back in, you know, before he didn't win the election, and he was calling for the economy to be open and that sort of thing. All right, there was talk about not wearing masks and all that stuff. Then and my business had been closed. Then of course, who am I going to vote for? I'm going to vote for someone who's going to open my business up again, regardless of what I think. You know,
and
so
they were the same people who would have voted him for the first time, so he couldn't abandon them then. And so basically, to shore the vote up, he's got to be more sensationalist and say this is what it is. You know, people say he's an idiot. He's blatantly not an idiot. Don't get to be president if you're an idiot now and stuff. But it's politics, isn't it? And unfortunately, it looks these days like sort of, you know, in the last election, sort of, you know, I thought the Lib Dem and Labour manifestos were both really good. I started reading them. I never used to. I used to vote Labour, you know, but then I started reading the manifestos. I thought, oh God, these are both really good. And I read the Tory one, and I wasn't being partisan, but I just thought, God, this is a load of shit. But then Boris comes out and says a load of fantastical things, and I'm thinking, God, that does sound good, you know. And it just it gets in your head, you know. So it's there, and you go on like this. And and so, you know, I'm not defending any personal things, but I don't, you know, sort of, it's just a shame that a lot of the tactics he played probably has led to people dying.
Mate, it's so refreshing having a conversation like that about, rather than, it's so easy whenever you bring up Trump or whoever and just go, yeah, he's a twat, or and actually think, well, why? How did he get into last time? And the big thing was the sticking the two fingers up at the big organisations, the corporates, the media, everything that Middle America sort of.
There will be a lot of things that come out afterwards they'll look through. I don't necessarily think they'll say it was a success, but they'll come through and go, that was good, that was good, that was good. And if you look at him in isolation, which you'll certainly put up in isolation, you'll think he was the best thing ever. Like in the South, I made a point when I was in motels of watching CNN or MSN one night and Fox the next, because otherwise you would literally just be too biased. And news over there isn't, sort of in the main network stuff, it often is just so partisan and shouty and stuff like that. The local news was great, but the big stuff, and it's just like, oh, do your head in, so I'd then generally put the wrestling on or something like that. But like in the South, it was never in doubt. Like sort of, I'm going to make some numbers up. The posters, Trump, Pence, and sort of, like Hillary Clinton and stuff, and Bernie was running as well.
Yeah, Bernie, yeah.
So I saw one Bernie poster in Austin, Austin, Texas, which is always going to be where you'd see the Bernie poster propped up outside a shop that was selling Donald Trump pinatas. So it made about sense. I probably saw about 16 Hillary posters. That number might be right. And then I reckon I saw about 3,000 Trump and Pence. And when we were in that bar, when the locals were watching the media and saying, oh, well, it's going to be a Democratic landslide, and seeing the surprise on people's faces when it didn't happen, like the more surprise was in the bar, they actually thought the Democrats were going to win. And it just shows very much, it's what you're told, because I was over there and people were just going to, I should have put a load of money on. It was never in doubt over there,
Really?
So you just sort of think, yeah, exactly. Like it was just literally those urban concentrations, and just like sort of with certain elections that we had a couple of years ago, it was just about who told the best fibs, and
it is mad to think that again. We've kind of brushed over up until now that you were there when all that was going on. I guess which.
There's some like just incredible things that sort of happened, like sort of like I ran through sort of Charlottesville and saw those statues before, that sort of massive like sort of white power rally was there. You don't think any of it, you just run past the statue and go, that's a nice statue, isn't it? But you don't know nothing about it.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I just think it was an incredible time to be there, and you saw people genuinely hurting about it. Like I'd go running with some people, I'd go, oh, who you're voting for, and a lot of people would just be like, it's like Brewster's Millions, none of the above, but they would eventually have just gone, I'm in Alabama, I've always voted Republican, I can't decide between them, but I don't like either of them, I'm just going to stick with what I know. And that was the thing.
On that, mate, did you get a lot of people running with you?
A few, not as many. Like I never got the end was great. Sort of I was running the Navajo reservation, and I just had loads of the local people sort of, come and go with me. I had 2 Navajo fire trucks, and this Utah police car came up and was like, get off the road, at this event, the roads, sort of it, in Monument Valley. And like basically he got told where to go, and he went down towards the finish, and I thought, oh, he's going to ruin the finish, he's going to do this. And a fella next to me just went, no way, man, this is Navajo land, he's got no power here. And that was amazing. And again, serendipity-tastic. Well, on that run, I was gradually picking up people. Fella comes up to his French accent and goes, excuse me, what is going on? So the fella just goes, this is the real Forest Gump, he's doing the run. And he was like, oh my God, I've troubled you with my wife to do to see the site, and now this is actually happening. Does this happen all the time? We go, no man, it's the only person to ever do it. He goes, I am coming running with you. So he ran to the end. Just happened that he was only the head of product development for Garmin in France, wasn't he?
Was he?
Really? Yeah.
Exactly.
That's a great contact to know.
Yeah, that's a nice watch, Dan. And so he came to the end, but then I would occasionally run into people who were just out on a run and just say hello to them, and like I would never say, this is what I'm doing. They'd be like, oh, you're from round here? Go, oh no, and I'm just passing through, and they go, where you running to? And I'd be like, well, I'm getting to like Knoxville by the end of the day, but Maine hopefully by the end of April. And they'd be like, what's going on? Then they get the story. And so
what was that like? Because I've only done, I know Tom's done a bit, but I done a month travelling in South America a couple of years ago, and it gets to a point where that like you've just said then, there's the same thing. Oh,
Yeah.
you know, like obviously I've lost my leg, and it's so straight away you meet strangers, and it's like, oh, what happened to your leg? Oh, I got blown up in Afghanistan. And it's did you not get bored of it? But was it a bit like? I'm guessing you must have had to say every day, oh yeah, well this is what I'm doing, and
you'd sort of get bored of the idea of saying it, but then again, it's once you were talking to them, because like sort of you know, even if I'd had a rubbish day, they didn't deserve my shit, you know, and stuff. And so then I'd just say, oh yeah, man, I said, I'm just really tired. I'm actually running across America. They're like, you're running across America in a car? No. And then of course you do that, and then as soon as they just went, I'm really interested, you just think, well, sod it, I'm interested in telling you the story, you know, and sort of, and like people just say, oh, what a fantastic story. But I reckon you could drive past someone at a bus stop tonight, say, right, I'm going to sit you down for 10 hours and just tell me the story of your life. Everyone's got a boss story, you know, like sort of, it might not be like sort of, you know, as Hollywood as Tom Hanks or something like that, but I bet you know, so anyone 100%. You met, you could write a book of their life and it would be boss if it was pushed the right way. Like you said, with any sort of charity event, if it's the right event and it's pushed the right way, it is brilliant.
I say with like the motivational speaking, I say if I went round the room now and asked you to tell me some, you know, stories and challenges you've overcome of adversity, everyone would be able to do it.
Yeah.
Do you know
but they think it's nothing, and you know, that is sort of one of the things, like sort of like I try to like pepper my Instagram with like sort of things of complete normality. Like the amount of times you'll see me looking good on Instagram are definitely outnumbered by the times you're just gonna go like sort of, oh, you know, that fella needs to just like have a shave and a wash, you know? And because this whole sort of thing of, you know, climbing a mountain for breakfast and then sort of, you know, being on a sun lounger for dinner, you know, so it doesn't really happen. And I bet you a lot of these sort of profiles, you know, sort of, if you actually looked into it, your life's probably more sound than theirs, apart from the fact that they do have a Ferrari. But, you know, hey, it costs loads to insure, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, mate, it's so true. I've just found that photo, by the way. So anyone who's watching on YouTube, then will be able to see this photo. If not, just type in Rob Pope.
It's out.
Did you try and replicate the road then? Did you find that road?
Well, that is the exact road there. Like sort of, actually, this one is there is the road, but it's a bit before it on the event. Let's scroll down, see if we've got any good pictures and stuff. Story time. And
it's mad how your beard was very similar.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah, it was.
As in, like, bang on. And the mad thing is, like, the beard got that length very, very quickly. And I was looking at this, just going, that's rubbish. Like, his beard's been well longer. Look how long his hair is. And then I found it was my hair that caught it up. And I was just like, God, the researchers in this have actually done a really good job. You know.
Should I just type in Rob Pope runner and let's have a look? What? Or did you want me to go back on
I
that?
reckon if you type in Rob Pope and then Island. No, as in like an island rather than Ireland, but like
as in Ireland.
No, as in IS. Yeah.
Sorry.
Island Packet. There's a newspaper that did a like, so we recreated the scene, you know, sort of where Forrest is running over that.
This one here.
Yeah, exactly, and so that is the Harbour River in Beaufort, South Carolina. So it's the same bridge that Forrest ran across the Mississippi, but it's not the Mississippi because, you know, so that was, I crossed the Mississippi for the 4th time in St. Louis. So this is, South Carolina, and just over the other side of that bridge is the chocolate shop where they got the actual box of chocolates that he sits on his knee and stuff. So much of it is set in South Carolina. And I was actually in this place called Varnville, and a fella pulls up in a red truck and just goes, "Welcome to Greenbow, Alabama." And like it was a local artist called Ment Nelson, and so he took a few photos of me running around, and he's recently painted a painting of Kanye West and Donald Trump, and Donald has got the red lipstick on, and there's a lipstick smacker on Kanye's face.
Yeah.
And so he's a local black South Carolina artist, and he valued that painting at $1 million, and people were just like, absolute rubbish. He'd never sold a painting for I think he'd never sold anything for 4 figures at this point. And so they were just going, "Can't believe you valued that at $1 million." And he just goes, "Well, if I don't value myself at $1 million, who is?" You know, and he's doing super. I don't know if he sold the painting for $1 million yet, but it should do.
He's doing well.
He should do. You know, if I was Joe Biden, I'd buy it for $1 million. You know, and but isn't that a great sentiment? If I don't value myself at $1 million, who will?
I wouldn't be surprised if someone would buy that because just purely on the price tag of $1 million.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's the sort of thing, you know. Like, who'd have thought sort of spray painting a stencil on someone's house wall would, like, sort of, you know,
in Bristol.
Stuff,
yeah, exactly. But
It's worth,
right time, right place.
So that's on.
Oh, it's actually, you can see the comparison one.
Yeah, it's amazing how you've wow.
So we actually got the people to dress up there.
That's amazing.
And it was -2 at that point. South Carolina, the first snow they'd had in 28 years. You can't see the snow there because it's like right by the sea. But
with shorts on,
absolutely freezing.
Did you have you had? Does Tom Hanks know about you?
I don't know. I think not, because I know he's meant to be a sound fella. And I reckon if he'd have known about it, he'd have let on. But I reckon probably what's happened is he probably took his 2 agents out for dinner, because that's all people probably want to talk to him about, isn't it? You know, and I bet he's walking down the street and just going to go, lads like box chocolates. He's probably sat his agents down and said, love you guys. If you send me one more thing about Forest Gump, you're getting sacked. Everybody had a giggle as they sipped the beer, but then the agents are just like, I'm definitely not going to do it. I'm not going to test the water. And the day that we finished was actually the weekend of his 30th wedding anniversary. So that's fair enough, isn't it? You know, sorry, Rita, I'm not going to be there. I'm going to boom off to Monument Valley to chat to this scruffy little puddlian.
I'm surprised. He hasn't.
It's such. I mean, has anyone done it since?
I don't think anyone will. The only challenge to do it would probably to do it in a year, which I think is doable. If you were independently rich and American, you know, if somebody gave me $100,000 now and gave me the visa to do it, I'd be confident I could do it in a year, barring unexplained
600
injury.
marathons in 365 days.
Yeah, I reckon it's doable. I definitely could have gone faster, but it wouldn't have been the same journey. It would have been the sort of thing where I'd have been chatting to you in a gas station, and I'd just gone, sorry mate, I've got to get off. You know, and so I did it at the time.
Those extra beers couldn't have happened and stuff, and a bit of late nights and stuff.
He didn't get hungover once, like, sort of, you know, because your body just wanted to eat anything you gave it. What have you got for me? Donuts. That's fine. What have you got to me? Like, I had a 52 ounce, I think it was a Dr. Pepper, because obviously that's what Forrest does, you know, and stuff like that. And I didn't know what 52 ounce was. I knew it was big because it had it in my hands, and I looked it up, and it was like 2 litres, and there was like about 50 mils left. And I went, let's finish it, you know. Yeah. So I was drinking so much, like, sort of, you know, like sugary drinks, fast food. Like, some days it was so hot, I'd literally have to fast food, hop from one place to the other just so I could get that aircon, you know.
I think, someone had said at the start, I think people maybe are thinking that the questions are going to ask you were, you know, how did you prepare, you know, what trains did you have on, what was your diet like, what was this? And
yeah, they've turned off ages ago.
But I remember we had a guy on James Ketchell, really amazing guy. Do you know James?
Yeah,
James, really amazing guy. And I don't know whether he maybe just didn't feel as comfortable talking to us, but I was kind of like, oh mate, you must have had some stories. And he was like, yeah, you know, I had a couple. And I was expecting, like, you know, beers.
You can tell I'm not PR trained,
but it's just so refreshing, like, and, you know, is unbelievable, it's an unbelievable challenge. But it was just, I just love the fact that it's like, well, yeah, I had a couple of beers and it was just on the hop, and I think
had shots.
It had to be like Forrest Gump and stuff like that, because, you know, obviously it would have been a cool story, and you know, you can dress a story up to make it look any way you want. But to me, I had to have the haircut, I had to grow the beard, because I'd look back at it, and if somebody ever did again, grew the beard, I'd just be like, no, you genuinely are the king of this, I'm going to let you do that. It doesn't matter, I did it first, you've done it better. So I wanted to do as good as I physically could. Now, I was running probably about 30-40 miles a week before, you know, so it's like the level of a decent hobby runner, you know, before I went. But then when Forrest is in his house, he's just got a pair of like Nike Cortez on his lap, and he just looks at him and goes, time to go. And so if I had the chance again, I'd have done much more core work and more flexibility, and I would have loved to have had a physio there on the way. But he just got up and he went, and I thought, you know, if I was doing like sort of a 3-month rundown of me doing like sort of, you know, plyo jumps and stuff like that, people just going, you're making this less cool already, man. So,
that's
so a good point, cool. Yeah. It's so fucking cool.
Just the way that in the store, like, you know, 8 beers and then the shots, and just like,
I never had the shots, remember?
Oh, you didn't have the
like,
shots.
I'm not gonna claim false credit.
But just think like, it's obviously it's not a stag do, but just like embracing that and just, not taking it too seriously.
Well, I think, to be honest, there's points like the fourth leg was was always going to be the middle child of the run, because first leg, great, perfect. Second leg, there was the experience of doing it on my own and getting to Maine, to the lighthouse, all the icons. The third leg was the glorious lake the Forest runs past in that stone bridge, and that's in Glacier National Park, named after the glaciers. By 2030 there'll be no glaciers left. How's about that? So again, added poignance to the run, so it's a massive point of focus for me. And then even picking the finish on the third leg, no one knows where Forrest does. Well, I can tell you it's Bandon Beach in Oregon, because that's where I've said he finished, because you don't see him there. And it's a lovely, lovely beach. It's got like an arch on the way to the town that's like Santa Monica. And then I just followed the coast down to San Francisco. And again, same, I picked that he finishes in Beaufort or Hunting Island, which is where they film the Vietnam scenes on the fourth leg, because you don't know. I'm
definitely watching this film this weekend, by the way. But, so what do you mean you don't know where he finishes then? So how does
on the map that I used, actually there's you might look at Forest Gump TV map. When they're doing that running scene, there's a newsreader and says, for more than 4 years now, a gardener from Greenbow, Alabama, and there's a map behind her. Now, I followed that map as close as I physically could, including really weird switchbacks that didn't really make sense, just so I could be as authentic as possible. And every landmark, like Santa Monica, Maine, Glacier National Park, Grandfather Mountain, I was planning on hitting. But then the blob stops just as he crosses the Mississippi for the fourth time, because that's where they're interviewing him. And that was roughly around the level of St. Louis, and I thought that'd be a cool place to cross. But there's no landmarks that you see on that sort of fourth leg, and I knew it was going to be winter. And Nadine, she comes back, by the way. I've not even mentioned this. So one of the bits I was really worried about, but I wasn't because I knew she was going to be there, was going across the wild north in the summer, because I originally thought, it's going to be like running in along sort of Southport Prom, innit, 22 degrees. Well, it's actually on the same latitude as Turin. So you're running through this massively sparse place in the heat of August, like 40 degrees C and stuff like that. And if I was on my own there, there's every chance I quit. Just because there's a place like in Montana, the worst mozzies I've ever seen. Even if you had 100% DEET on, they would still contact you, but then realise they had to get off, and they would go, they'd be hitting you like raindrops. It's that frequent. If I'm on my own and I'm having to camp there, I quit. But Nadine's there. But she comes back out, and we're in Minnesota. In a place called Fergus Falls. It was just this little dirt pile, and I run it towards the RV, and she appears at the door, and she goes, "Got some bad news for you. I've got some news for you. I don't think you're gonna like it." And I just wanted to do a joke, like, we've not run out of strawberry protein powder, have we? And I just go, "Baby," and she goes, "Baby," and so that's how we find out, literally there.
Really? Yeah.
And I was we were very 50-50 on whether we wanted one, but this was not the time to do it. And so she was worried I was going to be like, but I was like, that's great, cool, how do you feel? And so we had like a really nice chat. And then so she got me through the wild north, and we got down to San Francisco. But then of course she had to go home, because it was like, she had to go for the scans and everything like that. And so she goes home, and now I've got this fourth leg. Not knowing what's happening at home, missing the scan, sort of like having her, painting a nursery on her own and everything like that. And I obviously just said, let's just jack it in San Francisco. This is Forrest would have jacked it in. As soon as he found out, Jenny said that, he'd have jacked it in. So I've had a legit conscience of said, I've done it authentically, But she just said, nah. I said, you'll never forgive yourself, and I'll never forgive myself. I'm not making you stop. The only way you stop is money or injury, sort of, you're mentally not going to fail on this, so it's money or injury. And she goes back, but I've got this fourth leg now, and I'm going through proper winter in Wyoming, like I got to like -18, like proper like a beard freeze and everything like that. But I was just thinking, it's not just about getting across the end now, it's about staying alive, literally not dying. Imagine like sort of just getting wiped out by a truck, and I had like trucks jackknife in front of me, drivers like sort of go a bit too close for it not to be deliberate. And I'd already heard about a transcon runner who'd literally, a New Zealand guy who'd been smashed to bits by a hit and run driver in Ohio. He lived and he's walking again now, but he was this close to dying, like perforated bowel, pelvis, everything, you know. One day he's going to complete that run, and that would be the best transcon of all time, I reckon. And but then I go back, and my visa's finishing, so I go home and stuff. And at this point, I was really bummed out. And a mate of mine said, like, "You don't want to go back, do you?" And I was just like, "No." And I didn't realise why. You know, A, I was knackered. B, I was injured. C, I had no money. And sort of, you know, Nadine sort of had this like sort of growing baby inside that we now knew was going to be a girl, and we we're going to call her B, like a B. And so I went back because she said, "You've got to go back. Let's just, you know, go across." And I just crossed from Alabama into Mississippi, and I was sitting down on the grass just having me lunch, and I had this revelation. And the reason why I was so sad was because I knew that they weren't going to be there at the end. And so I get to the end, and I'd turn around, and there'd be lots of people who I would like and appreciate the presence of, but I was just like, we all know that you're not the person that I wanted to be here. And so quite often in life we have these obstacles, well, I can't do this because of that. I've got a job, I've got a kid, I've got this and stuff like that. So then what you need to do is, which is what I gradually sort of thought, was just go, well, how do I take those obstacles away? What's the problem? Nadine can't be there. Get her there. She can't be there. She's going to have a baby. When's she having a baby? 27th of March. Or why don't you just stop before the 27th of March and go back, have the baby and come back with her? So I got far enough. I asked her, I said, would you come back? And she just went, you're nuts, but if you want to do it, then yeah. So I got close enough for it to be, if I never went back, they wouldn't let me in the country. So I went past the distance that Forrest did, so 15,248. There's a little girder just outside the painted, oh my God, I forgot the name of this face. So
it's the first time you've forgotten in the whole entire life.
I've been rattling on now, sort of, oh my God.
Can I type something into
the national park? Yeah.
The world.
Actually, let's just find it on the map. Go a little bit that way. Go to Arizona. Keep going. It's Arizona. Zoom in. Go around here. So it should be this Petrified Forest. The Petrified Forest.
Well,
yeah.
That was quick. How you found that on the map then?
Yeah, I know. And I could find this exact spot on the map where there's a girder where I just rode 15,248 miles. You know, it following
we've got to find
it. Forest Gump. Right,
as if you'd find that now.
Sat nav. Go in.
So if I change this to satellite here now.
Yeah. So if you go in, zoom in a little bit, right?
My God.
Stayed there tonight. There's a days in there. Let's zoom. Go a bit down here.
Yeah.
Is there a service station there? Yeah, there is.
Wow.
Keep going along a bit. I can't do that. I can touch screen. Zoom in a bit now.
No.
Yeah. Keep going along this road a bit. Yeah, keep going on.
You've got some memory, you.
You zoom out just one. Yeah, exactly. That dirt road fills out there, so it would have been roughly about here. So it's about 200 metres after this dirt road, and there's going to be a little girder. We won't see the girder because of the thing, but it's written on the.
Oh, it's a pity we can't get street.
Impressive.
Pity it's not on Street View.
Yeah. Well, you can go onto the thing and just. This is what I was seeing around me.
Wow. So that's where you finished?
Well, that's where I reached the landmark. And,
of the distance.
Obviously, in the film scene, Fleetwood Mac Go Your Own Way is on there. And so I filmed a little video segment of me throwing a bit of red dirt up into the air and just carried on. So at that point, you know, I was at least Forrest equal, maybe not in ping pong, but, you know, still in running. And so we go on from there. And the place I actually finished was 200 miles shy of that place in Monument Valley, just by Flagstaff at the Twin Arrows rest stop. So that's the place where he gets splashed with mud by the lorry and wipes his face and gives him the t-shirt and it's the have a nice day smiley face, you know. And so I thought, right, that's great, let's go home. I think I got back on the 19th of March, and B was due on the 27th, and like at 12:30, like so 30 minutes into the due date, out she comes. And so it's just like, this is all working out very well, like so looking how quickly you can get a passport. And and so when I come home, I'm like, well, I'm going to need to be like off running for a month right at the end of this charity challenge, and it's going to potentially hamstring it, so I've got to do something running wise. And so I decided to do 3 marathons in 3 weekends and try to do them all under 3 hours. And so did Manchester, and I paced some of the lads from Liverpool Running Club round to their first sub 3, so that was a real honour.
Wow.
Then went to Brighton, got round again in under 3 hours and met Nick Cave, like just coming out of a pub and met Nick Cave, and he's like one of my musical heroes. B was in the pram and he goes, "Oh, a baby, nice." So she's been like blessed by Nick Cave. And then the final one was London. Now that was the biggie, because that was the one where I said, right, let's go for the world record just as a film character. And I didn't want it, because I didn't want it to fail, and I didn't want to be giving it the big chat. And I thought, right, I'm going to go on the day, I'm going to do the world record. You have to apply through Guinness, so you can't do it, just turn up and get the world record, and do the world record, and then go, yay, if I did it. And so Guinness just like, no, we're not letting you get away with that easy. You're going to get interviewed by Gary Logan, at the start line, and then at the end. And so
obviously you've still got the beard and everything.
Still got the beard. Well, I said that running outfit that you saw me on the bridge at in Beaufort, that was the running outfit that I did the marathon in, and so so it was a little bit of a cheat in terms of just as a film character. Like, I wasn't dressed as Darth Vader, but the person who I was taking the record off was dressed from Elsa from Frozen, so that was all Leica anyway. So I'm not having any disparaging remarks there. And I normally get knackered in a marathon between 18 and 20. This time it happened at mile 6, and I was just like, oh my God. So 20 miles of just hanging on for grim death. And as I had this BBC tracker on me, and as I just get to the mile, I see this little like camera drone like on wheels start firing up, and it's following me. So I get like filmed going down the mile. And of course I felt awful, and people said, "Oh man, you look so good going down the mile, you were flying, you could." And I just thought I was dead inside. And then go over the line, so it's a Mark from Guinness World Records is there, and he gives me the plaque and stuff.
What time did you have to beat?
So it was 2:39. I did like 2:36, and it was only about 3 miles to go, and I thought I can afford to go a minute a mile slower. And and get away with it. But I've been in marathons before and I've cramped at 25, and I could have had 1 mile to go and 3 minutes in the bank, and so I wasn't going to do anything. There was no way I was going to do a forward roll down the mile, It would have been hilarious, but
you felt confident then of breaking it.
Only those last 3 miles I started doing the sort of, oh God, this might happen, and so like, cause it's weird, like stuff. I don't really like competing. I like sort of training. And I know I come across confident when I'm speaking, but that's just because I've got a gob on me. But like I said, I am actually sort of pretty insecure on stuff like that. And when I found out I had to tell people I was doing this record attempt, I was just like, I'm just going to die on my arse. And it's going to look awful, because I know there'd be some people on social. I actually had a pretty positive experience, and I thought I'd get many more narcs. Just there are a lot of people saying get a job. I had loads of my social media attack dogs just going, yeah, it's got a job actually. He's a vet. He give it up to do this. and so, but I just know there'd been some people who definitely would have wanted me to fail there, especially the poor chap whose record it took. But I want someone else to beat mine now, because it was so much fun, and I want them to experience it. Records are a thing to have. And then they go, so it's the setting them that counts. It's not the whole.
I feel like when I got the 10K record.
Of course, 37, I believe.
37.17. Yeah. But I feel exactly the same.
Yeah,
I can't wait for someone.
Were you when you did that? Yeah.
But I can't. I get a buzz out of knowing that there's someone out there who's lost a leg through cancer, through a car accident, whatever, and they're going, one day I'm gonna fucking beat Andy's record. I know, it's cool as fuck.
Yeah, it is pretty cool.
The thing is as well though, it's gonna get beaten, so why be precious about it and stuff like that? I guess when you're the likes of sort of Jonathan Edwards and you've had that triple jump record for 25 years, that might be a bit of a deep burn when it goes, but I want mine to get beat soon as to be fair, I'm going to have a go getting it back, like. Maybe not run 5 times across America first, but talking about the 5 times, of course it isn't 5 times, because if you go back out again, we'll go to the exact point. Well, if you actually just go on Google Maps and type in Forest Gump point.
But on that, sorry, before you get to that, so you do the marathon, break that, and then you go back with your daughter.
I flew, so the marathon was on the Sunday, London Marathon, and then I fly economy class, of course, on Monday back to Vegas. We drive over, we meet Ben, who was in with us in Kansas, and he comes over. Jenny, we've not even mentioned Jenny. Our RV, we named her Jenny because you got to name your boat something, haven't you?
Yeah.
Well, we had a friend called Olivia who took up the mantle of Jenny driver from San Francisco, and she was meant to take me all across the winter through Nebraska and then drop me off somewhere a bit warmer. But when we were in Nevada, a 90-year-old fella who's off to Vegas for his last ride, basically ends up totaling the RV, just destroys it, and basically we never had that again, sort of until we went back, and Olivia went up to Salt Lake City and brought the RV down, and we had the command vehicle for the final bit, and so Jenny was there at the end, everybody was there. And that's not me, by the way. I don't know who that is, but
those markings in the road, is that identified, or was that just purely coincidental?
No, I did it sort of from the. Oh, you mean the little dots in the road? They're just rumble strips. Then
there's nothing.
Bane of my life when I was pushing a stroller and I was on the side of the road. There's actually a lot of people go to the wrong spot for it. You see a lot of people getting the photos taken that are 100 meters too close to the rocks. I did this like literally with the film, looking at everything. I thought they've got the wrong place here. Now we tried to recreate the filming scene, but of course I didn't want to turn around. I didn't want to see the mountains until I was turning around for that time. So Ben, with his cinematography hat on, was saying, let's go there the day before. We don't have to say the line. We just find the angles for the cameras. I went, nah, man. I said, I want to do this once in my life. And if we botch the filming, that's cool. I just don't want to botch the ending. So we get there. There's about sort of 25 people running with us. I turn around, say the line. Olivia's in the crowd, and she does the reply line, just going, now what are we supposed to do? So I walk between them and then go and propose to Nadine. She says yes, and then that was that.
That is mad, isn't it? That is good. Where is Forest? So Forest Gump Hill is in Monument Valley.
So that is just over the border in Utah. And so if we zoom right out on the country, you think, well, how far across is that? It's probably about 3/4 of the way across, isn't it?
Yeah.
So distance-wise, they call it 2,766 miles is the distance across. That's the distance from LA to New York, quickest way. So distance-wise, I've almost gone across 6 times, but I'll never claim that. I can sort of claim 5 times because I pretty much did, but we all know it's only 4.75 times, don't we? So started on September the 15th, 2016. Unless something gets in the way of it, 2021, September the 15th, I will be back at that same point, and I'm going to turn around and I'm going to run to the ocean, because I don't have to explain in 20 years' time why I only did it 4.75 times,
So you're going to run west?
Yeah, I'm going to run west.
To LA?
Yeah, that's going to be the end point. I think Santa Monica Pier was such a cool point.
I've been there, it's cool, isn't it?
It's amazing, stuff in there. Well, another reason why I want to go back there is, I said I got in the sea. The start of the film, you see the feather going around, don't you? And then at the end, the feather flies away. So I get in, I'm getting changed, freezing cold, November the 30th, I think it was, and it was shivering. And I'm going to put my Cortez back on, and I just go, did you put that there? And someone just went, what, there? And underneath it, nobody did, underneath the Cortez was a single white feather. A single white feather. Now, there were seagulls around there. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that the feather was there,
it's
but nobody did it. It just went
Yeah.
under it. So it's going to be a right place at the end. I think Tom Hanks lives in Santa Monica as well, so this time. And,
Mate, did you run them in? Don't say you run the whole thing in like Cortez.
No, I wore them out. So I did about 500 miles in them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I did Boston when I was over there, and I was originally thinking of self-preservation. Let's just run it, do the experience. I ran that in the khaki shorts, the check shirt, the cap, the socks, and I was going around 11 miles. And it was just before the Wellesley College, which is where, if you ever run Boston, it's like being in the Beatles, because there's the biggest girls' university in America, and it's just a scream. They call it the Scream Tunnel. And so there was this fella in the build-up, and he was heckling people, not in a bad way, just like everybody gets leathered in the crowd at Boston Marathon. It's Patriots Day, and it's bank holiday.
Wasn't it 2016 when they had the bomb?
It was, I think it was 2013.
Oh, was it? So it was way after.
But I saw the monument there, and it was really poignant. Actually flying back out on the 5th leg when I was struggling for motivation, I watched the film Stronger. I didn't set out to. It was there, and that was one of the things. I watched that, followed by Al Gore's An Inconvenient Sequel. So it was a message of just shut your gob, get on with it and do it. People have overcome bigger things. And then think about climate change. I thought, right, that's got me motivated. And then I missed my connection and slept on the floor in JFK, so like, slightly demotivated. But this fellow's heckling people in a nice way, and I got close and he's wearing a Man United shirt, so I thought, I'm having some of this. So go over there, and it turns out he's actually saying to people, have some beer. And so he's like, just literally open this new one, and I just go past and take this beer off him, a Bud Light, So the next mile I go to the fella next to me, hey, do you want some of this? And he just looks at me like I had two heads, so I'm like swigging this beer for the next mile. And it gets to mile 16, I think. I was starting off doing like 8-minute miles, and I thought, what pace have I got to do a sub 3 hour marathon here? And it was like 6:08.
Whilst having a beer on the way.
Well, that's probably what made me think. It was like I was doing 6:08, and I thought,
it's incredible, that.
I'm going to give a mile a go at 6:08 and see what it feels like. And it felt all right. And I did the next one at 6:08, and then I did the next one at 6, and then I ended up going quick, and I ended up doing it in 2:58. Got interviewed by the Boston CBS and the Globe actually at the finish, and in the Boston Globe the headline was Forest Gump finishes Boston with a beer, and they were like, so how did you cope with a beer? And I was just like, well, it's only Bud Light and it's just nice and tonic sports drinks. And so man, just so many stories.
God,
incredible, mate. Mate, I feel like you won't be able to answer these because you've covered so much, mate, but like quick fire ish. What was your favourite place?
The Joshua Tree National Park was the biggest mind-affirming place, but then in Death Valley I actually found the original The Joshua Tree as well, and I did a lip-sync video to Where the Streets Have No Name, and it's the greatest thing on the internet. I dispute anyone to find anything. You'll never see a man so joyous as that.
Any kind of... Is there... Probably difficult to pick like a one-off person who character, or you met, or you just thought they were crazy, funny.
God, that's crazy. Well, like we've already sort of mentioned Tyvee and Raimi, so I'll just pick a random one out. We're talking about you two, aren't we? I end up going to like Chicago. It's a city I've always wanted to visit, because I'm a Chicago Bears fan. And you two were playing that weekend, and I'm blagging a ticket here somehow. Get interviewed on the telly, said, oh, what are you doing in Chicago? I'm trying to get a ticket for the U2 gig. Doesn't happen, but I get a Facebook message, and it's a chap saying, do you want to go to the U2 gig? I've got a spare. And I go, mate, that's amazing. How much do you want? He just goes, nothing, just come with me and tell me stories. And so I went there, and this like fella, like sort of Randy Anderson, another Randy, built like an absolute brick shit house and stuff like that. And sort of, and then he was there, and he'd also took his mate, who was a college footballer, massive Bears fan. He was in Soldier Field, the gig, home of Chicago Bears. And when we go to the place, sort of, his mate just breaks down in tears on the pitch, and he just said, I always wanted to step foot in this pitch one day. And there was like sort of Randy's girlfriend Amber as well, and this group of four of us, and their mate Stevie joined us. Just so much love, and then they did the whole of the Joshua Tree from start to finish. And the video wall at the start, like there was a road that I'd run on, and Randy just turns around to me, he just goes, you all right, mate? Not all right. So that's an honourable mention, but ask me tomorrow, man, there's a different story.
God,
mate, I'm so mate, this might have been one of the favourite podcasts.
Do you know what? So Rob, we release an episode every Monday, right? And I feel like this would be such a good way to start 2021 by releasing it. So the first Monday is the 4th of January. So I feel honestly, like
we've had some belters on, some guests, and I've been like, wow, in awe of. But like, I just think it's infectious. Your attitude towards life and what you've done, and just, mate, it's just unbelievable, mate.
Honestly, mate, we should be paying you for this.
I'm not special, man. It's just I was the person in the right place at the right time, and it's just literally having belief in yourself, and then having other people believe in you. That was the key. So let's just sort of, let's get behind everybody in 2021, and let's not be moaning about Brexit or sort of tier levels or anything like that. Let's, we can sort this out. We don't need a CAF saying make the UK great again. It's just stop the UK getting shit.
So
what
true,
a line. I made last kind of plug then. So a book then coming out, is it?
I hope so. Yeah, it's written and sort of it's bubbling under, and so like obviously people have got their Christmas presents for next year, but I just know everybody's thinking they wanted a Christmas present for next year. So we might have an announcement at some point, but I can't say anything just yet.
Cool. Okay.
Maybe on the 4th.
And how can people follow you then? Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, is it?
It's Run Forest Run, Run Rob La Run. So like Rob and then La LA Run, you know.
Run
and so
I think it's run.robla.
Yeah, on Instagram it's that. But if you just type Run Rob La Run in, that's the Facebook and Twitter and stuff, and it's all on there. You know, it works on a number of different levels. So me and the missus Nadine, Gavin and Stacey, Rob La Nadla. Rob ran to LA. That's what all the Americans think it is. Robla. That's why I get called over there. Robla ran to LA. But of course, we're all Scousers here, and it's just Rob.
Yeah. Rob, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thanks
honestly,
so much.
I can't thank you enough, mate.
Cheers,
I really
guys.
appreciate your time, honestly.
Well, just as I said, man, it's literally cheered me up. It's made my 2020, so happy days.
Mate, it's made my 2020.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, mate. Thank you.